Chapter 422. At that time, Lu Yuan also used this indefinite storm to deal with her. Chihiro Snow still deeply experienced the feeling of powerlessness after being imprisoned. At that time, Lu Yuan even directly carried her and ran away in public. Chihiro Snow would never forget that memory in her life. Thinking of this, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but glare at Lu Yuan. Thinking of that scene, Chihiro Snow still felt a little ashamed. "Cher, why are you staring at me again? I didn't provoke you, did I?" Suddenly being glared at by Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan was a little confused. When did he provoke Chihiro Snow again? Chihiro Snow snorted and didn't answer. "Yo, Shuer, your temper has grown again." Lu Yuan stepped to Chihiro Snow's side and hugged Chihiro Snow's waist. "Do you want me to bully you again in public in broad daylight?" Lu Yuan's mouth had an evil smile. Suddenly, he glanced at the darkening sky and said, "Oh, right, it's not broad daylight anymore. It's already dark. Well, it's time to get down to business." "Hey, don't." Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow panicked. If she did that with Lu Yuan here, she would really have the heart to die. "Abuchi, don't mess around, okay? When we go back, you can do whatever you want. Let's forget about this place." Chihiro Snow grabbed Lu Yuan's shoulder with pleading eyes. "Now you know to be afraid. Then why did you stare at me for no reason just now? Have I become your punching bag?" Lu Yuan said angrily. He did love Chihiro Snow very much and was willing to accommodate her, but it didn't mean that he didn't have his own temper. His love wasn't so low that he would let Chihiro Snow bully him without any reaction. On the contrary, he was a bit of a male chauvinist, which was Chihiro Snow. Usually, Helena and Zhu Zhuqing dared to lose their temper with him for no reason. Even Jiyu Yuena was gentle in front of him. He even suspected that he had spoiled Qian Renshua too much, causing her to develop an arrogant and willful temperament. "Okay, it's my fault." Chihiro Snow hurriedly admitted her mistake. Looking at Lu Yuan's expression, she knew that Lu Yuan was already a little emotional. That's right. It had been so long, and this stinky guy had already apologized, but she still remembered it in her heart. It was indeed a little unreasonable. "Cher, I love you and spoil you, but it doesn't mean that you can pester me endlessly and make trouble without reason. Do you understand?" Lu Yuan looked straight at Chihiro Snow with a somewhat serious expression. "Well, I know. I won't do it again in the future." Chihiro Snow nodded her little head, her expression unusually obedient. She was very strong, but when Lu Yuan was really serious, she would still choose to retreat. Sometimes, Lu Yuan's strength and dominance made her deeply infatuated. This was what a man should be like. "You." Gently stroking Chihiro Snow's long blonde hair and looking at Chihiro Snow's obedient appearance, his mood calmed down again. It was really hard for him to get angry with Chihiro Snow. Moreover, Chihiro Snow understood him very well. Every time he was about to lose his temper, she would promptly apologize. She would never really provoke him. This could be considered as Chihiro Snow's wisdom. Go and end that scarlet flame golden light condor, lest it continue to suffer. This scarlet flame golden light condor is just over 50,000 years old. It's the most suitable for you. Lu Yuan sighed and said. "Okay." Chihiro Snow nodded. Then, when Lu Yuan wasn't paying attention, she lightly pecked Lu Yuan's face before carrying the divine sword and walking towards the scarlet flame golden light condor king. This little girl. Touching his cheek that was kissed, Lu Yuan smiled helplessly. Chihiro Snow, this little girl, really had him in a tight grasp. It could be said that she understood his character very well. Similarly, there was Jiyu Yuena. She was also extremely smart. She never clashed with Lu Yuan on the surface and always had a gentle appearance. However, in private, her methods were one after another without any malice, making Lu Yuan unable to get angry even if he wanted to. Moreover, unknowingly, she had firmly tied Lu Yuan and her together. Why are all these beautiful women so smart? Lu Yuan sighed in his heart. Among his women, Chihiro Snow and Jiyu Yuena were the smartest and the most scheming. Senior sister is still the best. Lu Yuan couldn't help but think of Helena. In the end, Helena was still the most obedient. Apart from loving him, she didn't have any other thoughts. Giving her the yearning heartbroken red was the right thing to do. Such a flower of true love should be given to someone as infatuated as her. PSSH. The divine sword stabbed directly into the scarlet flame golden light condor's body. The scarlet flame golden light condor, which was already on the verge of death, finally breathed its last breath. A pitch-black soul ring rose from the scarlet flame golden light condor's corpse. This soul ring's black color was very deep, and was not much inferior to Lu Yuan's fourth soul ring. There were very few people who possessed a 50,000-year sixth soul ring. Furthermore, the scarlet flame golden light condor was a top-tier soul beast. This was even rarer. Just as Lu Yuan was sizing up the scarlet flame golden light condor's soul ring, a sound came from his left foot. Lu Yuan turned around and saw that it was the body of the evil soul master, the soul Douluo. However, he was completely lifeless now. Young Master Yuan, I've let you down. I didn't manage to capture him alive, the snake spear Douluo said. That's expected. If it was so easy to capture him alive, he wouldn't be an evil soul master. Elder Snake Spear, this evil soul master shouldn't be weak, right? Lu Yuan asked. Yes. Although he's not as strong as a titled Douluo, he's not far off. A typical rank 91 titled Douluo might not be able to capture him. The two of us worked together, but we still couldn't capture him alive. These evil soul masters are really strange. The snake spear Douluo said. Yes. Lu Yuan nodded and pointed at the evil soul master's corpse. He said, let's see if there are any clues on his body. These evil soul masters appeared out of nowhere in the dense fog forest. I feel that it's a little strange. The system's mission couldn't have been issued for no reason. It had to have something to do with him, which was why the check-in mission was triggered. Since he had come to the dense fog forest and hadn't triggered the check-in mission until now, it meant that he hadn't come into contact with the true core of the incident. It was just like back in the Great Stardow Forest. He had to reach the core before he started to calculate the check-in time. It was probably the same this time. Yes. The snake spear Douluo groped around. Suddenly, he paused, as if he had discovered something. Seeing this, Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed. Could there really be a situation? The snake spear Douluo reached into his black robe and took out a grayish-white token. Young Master Yuan, what do you think? The snake spear Douluo took 2 steps forward and passed it to Lu Yuan. Yes. Lu Yuan received the token. There was a blood-red skull on the front of the token. Lu Yuan glanced at it out of habit before he flipped it over. Suddenly, Lu Yuan's eyes focused. His expression changed, and he was shocked. Following Lu Yuan's gaze, he could see 2 blood-red words engraved on the token, Holy Spirit. Chapter 423. Holy Spirit. Lu Yuan stared intently at the 2 words on the token, and his heart was in turmoil. Wasn't this supposed to belong to Do too? How could something like this appear on the Douluo continent now? Could it be that the flapping of the butterfly's wings had caused a huge change in its original trajectory? The Holy Spirit Church is an extremely powerful organization. Judging from the scale of Do 2, the Martial Soul Palace might not be able to deal with them even if they used all their strength. However, Do 1 shouldn't be that powerful now, right? Furthermore, the Holy Spirit Church is different from evil soul masters. Evil soul masters have existed on the Douluo continent since ancient times, while the Holy Spirit Church seems to have come from the Sun-Moon continent. Lu Yuan furrowed his brow slightly. He didn't know much about the origins of the Holy Spirit Church, but he knew that this organization wasn't native to the Douluo continent. There was indeed a huge evil soul master organization on the Douluo continent in the past, but it had been destroyed by the angel god, and the remaining survivors had been hunted down by the Martial Soul Palace for generations. They had already lost their original scale, and even if that evil soul master organization still existed, they weren't called the Holy Spirit Church. This matter is getting more and more confusing. Lu Yuan sighed in his heart. The Holy Spirit Church's sudden appearance had caught him off guard. The Holy Spirit Church and the Martial Soul Palace were destined to be enemies, and Lu Yuan had to deal with them. Furthermore, this enemy was much more powerful than the Clear Sky sect. Evil soul masters were like rats hiding in the dark. No one knew what kind of strange methods they had, and how far they had developed. Coincidentally, the unknown was the most terrifying. It seems like I have to speed up some of the arrangements on the Douluo continent. As long as the continent is unified and the internal situation is stabilized, no matter how strange the Holy Spirit Church is, and no matter how much trouble they cause, they won't be able to shake the martial Soul Palace's rule. When the time comes, it'll be much easier to destroy them all, Lu Yuan calculated in his heart. Abuchi, what's wrong? Why do you look so pale? Chihiro Snow, who had just killed the Scarlet Flame Golden Light Eagle, couldn't help but ask when he saw Lu Yuan frowning as he held the token. Hearing Chen Renshue's voice, Lu Yuan could not help but return to his senses. He handed the token to Chen Renshue and said, Shui, look. Holy Spirit. What kind of organization is this? Why haven't I heard of it before? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with some confusion. The Holy Ghost Church is an evil soul master organization, and a very powerful one at that. They're definitely a great enemy of our martial Soul Palace, Lu Yuan said in a serious tone. How strong are they? Are they stronger than the Supreme Sky Sect? It was rare for Chen Renshue to see Lu Yuan so serious. She was curious. Even the Clear Sky Sect was only slightly important to Lu Yuan, and he didn't pay much attention to them. However, the Holy Ghost Church had made Lu Yuan treat them so seriously. To be honest, this was the first time that Chihiro Snow had seen Lu Yuan being so serious. They're much stronger than the Supreme Sky Sect. If it's the Holy Ghost Church from my memory, they can rival our martial Soul Palace, Lu Yuan said. The Holy Ghost Church from Douluo Middle School was very strong. It wasn't a problem to say that they could rival the martial Soul Palace. What did you say? Abuchi, is what you said true? Chihiro Snow was a little shocked. There's actually an organization in this world that can rival the martial Soul Palace? Of course it's true. However, it's really hard to say if the Holy Ghost Church is as strong as the Holy Ghost Church in my memories. However, there's one thing that's certain. We absolutely can't lower our guard against the Holy Ghost Church. We must pay 120% attention to it, Lu Yuan said with a serious expression. Yes. Chihiro Snow nodded when she heard this. She believed in Lu Yuan. Since Lu Yuan said so, the Holy Ghost Church was definitely not simple. This guy never joked about serious matters. All right, Cher, go and absorb the soul ring of the blazing golden light eagle king. Leave this to me. Lu Yuan took the token back from Chihiro Snow and said, I'll go and absorb it. Protect me. Chihiro Snow said gently. Yes. Go. Lu Yuan smiled and said. Chihiro Snow nodded and sat down not far away from the blazing golden light eagle king. She released her martial soul and closed her beautiful eyes. She waved her hand gently, and the black soul ring flew to Chihiro Snow's head. She started to pour energy into it. Golden light flashed, and the absorption of the soul ring officially began. Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed as he watched Chihiro Snow absorb the soul ring. He carefully looked at the grayish-white token in his hand. He had some guesses in his heart. Perhaps his check-in this time had something to do with these evil soul masters. The danger of evil soul masters was self-evident. On the Douluo continent, evil soul masters were not that serious because of the suppression and pursuit of the martial Soul Palace. Secondly, it was because of the existence of the Massacre City. This place left behind by the Azura god trapped many evil degenerates. After all, they could only enter and not leave. Only 8 people came out in 1,000 years. The existence of the Massacre City was very important to the peace of the Douluo continent. Lu Yuan flipped his hand and kept the token in his astral ring. His eyes flashed. When the time comes, everything will be all right. It was useless to think too much now. Taking care of the matter at hand was the most important thing. Lu Yuan muttered to himself, I wonder how much Cher will benefit this time. After absorbing the 5th soul ring, her rank will definitely increase greatly. After all, the yin-yang immortal grass is no joke. The medicinal effects of these two things combined are even greater than the yearning heartbroken red. The yin-yang immortal grass was considered the most precious medicinal herb nurtured in the icefire yin-yang well. When yin and yang combined, it was very beneficial to a person. After Chihiro Snow consumed it, his martial soul evolved from a 6-winged angel to an 8-winged angel. One could imagine how effective it was. The 6-winged angel was not like the 7 treasures glazed pagoda or the jade phosphorus snake. It was a god-tier martial soul, so it was very difficult for it to evolve. However, the yin-yang immortal grass did it. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the most precious medicinal herb nurtured in the icefire yin-yang well. The sky was already dark, but this area was already very bright. This was because Chihiro Snow's 8-winged angel was emitting a dazzling golden light that illuminated everything around it. Lu Yuan held a piece of dried food in his hand and slowly ate it. Chihiro Snow was still absorbing the soul ring, and he had no desire to cook for himself. He just ate some dried food to fill his stomach. Absorbing a soul ring was destined to be a very time-consuming process. In particular, this soul ring was 50,000 years old, so it would definitely take a lot of time. Lu Yuan also found a place to sit down with his legs crossed and began to recover his soul power. After all, his spiritual power and soul power had not fully recovered from the battle just now. In this dangerous dense fog forest, he had to maintain his peak condition at all times. Chapter 424. Lu Yuan sat cross-legged with his eyes shut. Although the clear aura scripture was only the first half of the Great Purity Immortal Sutra, it was undeniably the #1 cultivation technique on the Douluo continent. As long as he cultivated it to the 9th level, he would possess limitless clear aura and soul power. It was like a torrential river that flowed endlessly. Right now, Lu Yuan was only at the peak of the 4th level, and had yet to break through to the 5th level. However, his soul power was much more condensed and concentrated than other soul masters of the same tier. Otherwise, Lu Yuan's soul power would be depleted in less than 2 of these powerful weapons. It should be much better if I break through to the 5th level. When that happens, the clear aura scripture will improve, and my soul power will increase again. Furthermore, my recovery speed will be much faster. That's the most important thing. Lu Yuan thought to himself. After thinking for a while, Lu Yuan tossed these thoughts aside and started to meditate to recover his soul power. The snake spear Douluo and thorny pufferfish Douluo stood guard outside, protecting the two of them. After all, Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow were the treasures of the martial soul palace. If anything happened to them, Bibidon and Sendryu would definitely kill them. As such, the snake spear Douluo and thorny pufferfish Douluo didn't dare to be careless when it concerned the safety of Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow. Time passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was already late at night. Right at this moment, Chihiro Snow, who had been absorbing soul rings, suddenly opened her eyes. Her golden eyes exuded an indescribable dignity. They were filled with indescribable holiness and nobility. The 8-winged angel opened her arms slightly, and a bright golden light instantly spread out. Chihiro Snow stood up. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, and black soul rings rippled beneath her feet. A strong aura was released from Chihiro Snow's body, and it continued to spread into the surroundings. At the same time, Lu Yuan's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. Done absorbing? Lu Yuan stood up and looked at Chihiro Snow with a smile. Yes, it's done. Chihiro Snow first nodded, then suddenly asked, but didn't you say you would protect me? Why are you also meditating? You lied to me. Chihiro Snow's tone had a hint of complaint. This man didn't keep his word. Don't look at me with my eyes closed. In fact, I know everything that's going on outside. My spiritual power has already covered an area of 500 meters around me. I can sense even the slightest movement. Lu Yuan said with a smile. Really? Chihiro Snow's face showed a trace of surprise. How could this man's spiritual power be so strong? Of course it's true. Do you think I'm like you? My mental strength is so weak. Lu Yuan curled his lips and said. What did you say? Chihiro Snow immediately exploded when she heard the slight disdain in Lu Yuan's voice. How could her spiritual power be weak? It was comparable to a soul sage's. This guy actually said that her spiritual power was weak. He was too much. I said that your spiritual power was weak. Your spiritual power is about the same as my senior sister's. She's one rank lower than you. Lu Yuan continued to look for trouble with a smile on his face. Helena was a spiritual type soul master, and her martial soul was the nine-tailed celestial fox. She specialized in spiritual power. Although her soul power was only at rank 56, her spiritual power was comparable to a soul sage. On the other hand, Chihiro Snow was an assault-type soul master, and her martial soul was the eight-winged angel. She specialized in the power of holiness, light, and fire. Spiritual power wasn't her forte. Even so, her spiritual power was comparable to a soul sage's even though she was a soul emperor. This was actually quite good. Lu Yuan was only teasing Chihiro Snow when he said this. He just liked to tease her when he had nothing to do. After all, she was a woman, and he couldn't always spoil her. It was actually quite interesting to tease her a little. Lu Yuan, I think you're courting death. Chihiro Snow's face turned black when she heard Lu Yuan's words. This guy was actually implying that she wasn't as good as Helena. How could she tolerate this? Die, Lu Yuan! Chihiro Snow shouted. She raised her fist that was glowing with golden light and rushed towards Lu Yuan. Oh, you're serious. Lu Yuan couldn't help but chuckle when he saw Chihiro Snow rushing towards him with her martial soul. This girl couldn't be teased. She was angry just because of this. Bang! Chihiro Snow's fist landed on Lu Yuan's chest. Before she could react, Lu Yuan hugged her. With Lu Yuan's 90,000 kilograms of strength, Chihiro Snow couldn't move after being hugged by him. Lu Yuan, let go of me. Chihiro Snow struggled violently. Okay, stop fooling around. I was just joking with you. You can't take it. Lu Yuan said softly. H, you actually said that I'm not as good as Helena. That's too much. Chihiro Snow snorted. Please, I was just saying it casually. Don't take it seriously. Senior sister is a spiritual type soul master, and you're an assault type soul master. How can you compare the two of you? Furthermore, her spiritual power isn't stronger than yours. Both of you should be about the same now. Lu Yuan said. Chihiro Snow snorted. Share, if you snort again, don't blame me for using force. Lu Yuan said faintly. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow's delicate body stiffened. She stopped struggling and spat out two words indifferently, scoundrel. You're right, I'm indeed a scoundrel. Lu Yuan chuckled. He didn't care about Chihiro Snow's ridicule at all. Chihiro Snow rolled her eyes. This man's skin was so thick. She couldn't do anything to him. What's your rank now? Looking at your aura, you should be around rank 65. Lu Yuan asked softly. Indeed, I'm already at rank 65. Abuchi, this should be the effect of the 2 stalks of yin-yang immortal grass you gave me, Chihiro Snow said. Yes, it should be so. Your 6th soul ring should have also increased by 1 rank. Lu Yuan nodded. Although the yin-yang immortal grass had extraordinary effects, it was impossible for the 50,000-year blazing golden eagle king's soul ring to not have any additional effect. His 4th soul ring had increased by a lot. In addition to the soul power he had accumulated through cultivation, the 65,000-year soul ring had directly increased his rank by 3, directly pushing him to rank 46. The effect of this soul ring couldn't be ignored. Yes, what you said makes sense. Chihiro Snow nodded slightly. Looking at Chihiro Snow's delicate face, Lu Yuan smiled and asked, It's already late at night. You should be hungry. I'm indeed a little hungry. Chihiro Snow said softly as she felt that her stomach was a little shriveled. Then eat something first. Lu Yuan let go of Chihiro Snow, took out some dry food from his star ring, and handed it to Chihiro Snow. The pitch-black sky was dotted with stars, and the stars could be seen shining through the thick white fog. Chihiro Snow leaned on Lu Yuan's shoulder as she picked up the dry food in her hand and gently took a bite. Lu Yuan's eyes were deep as he looked up at the sky. His double pupils penetrated the thick white fog and looked at the beautiful night sky. Chapter 425. Morning. Lu Yuan opened his eyes slightly. He was still greeted by a vast expanse of whiteness. White fog covered the entire forest. If an ordinary human entered the dense fog forest, they would not be able to see more than 200 meters in such an environment. Even a soul master like Chihiro Snow would not be able to see more than 400 meters clearly. Only Lu Yuan had his polychoria. When his polychoria was activated, he was not affected by the white fog. He could see very far. Lu Yuan smiled as he looked at Chihiro Snow, who was sleeping soundly on his shoulder. She had slept too late last night. She had not woken up yet. The snake spear Douluo and thorny pufferfish Douluo did not sleep for the entire night. The dense fog forest was simply too dangerous. They needed someone to protect them and keep watch. Now that they had obtained Chihiro Snow's soul ring, they could actually return. However, Lu Yuan was concerned that his check-in mission had not been triggered yet. It was evidently not time to return yet. Should he continue to advance into the forest? Lu Yuan was hesitant. This check-in could be a little dangerous. The appearance of the evil soul master, the soul Douluo, made Lu Yuan feel a little uneasy. If he was alone, he would just continue forward. It was just a little bit of danger, and it wouldn't be a big deal. However, Chihiro Snow was with him now. He did not want Chihiro Snow to be hurt, even if there was only a slight possibility. However, when he thought about the snake spear Douluo and thorny pufferfish Douluo beside him, Lu Yuan felt that they should be fine. After all, they had two titled Douluo with them. Their safety was guaranteed. It was also because of this complicated feeling that Lu Yuan was a little hesitant. Suddenly, Lu Yuan felt something moving on his shoulder. He focused his gaze. It turned out that Chihiro Snow had woken up. Chihiro Snow hugged Lu Yuan's arm and rested her face on Lu Yuan's shoulder. A few strands of golden hair stuck to her forehead, and she looked like she had just woken up. "You're awake." Looking at Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan said with a smile. "Yes." Chihiro Snow nodded, her pair of beautiful eyes looking straight at Lu Yuan, sizing up Lu Yuan's flawless handsome face. Just like how Lu Yuan liked to look at Chihiro Snow and admire her beauty, Chihiro Snow also had a soft spot for Lu Yuan's handsome face. For someone who was obsessed with looks were always the most important thing. Among Lu Yuan's 4 women, not to mention Jiu Yuana, the other 3 were obsessed with looks. They could fall in love with Lu Yuan so easily, and they loved him so wholeheartedly. Looks were definitely a very important point. "How is it? Am I handsome?" Looking at Chihiro Snow's gaze, Lu Yuan's lips curled up slightly, and he chuckled softly. "It's okay." Chihiro Snow curled her lips and said casually, but her eyes still didn't move away. "Oh, a woman who doesn't say what she thinks." Lu Yuan complained in his heart. She obviously couldn't bear to look away, but she was still stubborn. Unlike him, he never hid his desire for her body. "Let's go back later," Chihiro Snow asked. "Well, let's go back later." Lu Yuan nodded. He still made such a decision in his heart. The feeling of uneasiness in his heart was really lingering. There must be some danger in this check-in. His intuition had never been wrong. In order to prevent Chihiro Snow from getting hurt, he was willing to not do this check-in mission. At the same time, he was a little regretful in his heart. Why did he send Long Xiaoyao out? If he was still around, then there wouldn't be any danger. "Cher, since you're already awake, let's have breakfast and go back. There are dangers in the dense fog forest, and it's best if we don't stay for too long," Lu Yuan said. "Okay." Chihiro Snow nodded. Breakfast was naturally just a casual meal. Since they were already going back, there was no need to look for any ingredients. It would be a waste of time to waste everyone's time. If they had the time to go back to Heaven Do Imperial City, they could eat whatever they wanted. "Have a piece of biscuit, Cher." Hua Yuhao placed the biscuit in his hand and used his blood energy to heat it up. Immediately, it became a lot softer, and even gave off a faint fragrance. "Okay, Abuchi, you should have some too." Chihiro Snow received the biscuit from Lu Yuan. Her red lips parted slightly, and she took a small bite. Seeing this, Lu Yuan smiled and took a piece for himself. 15 minutes later, after drinking a mouthful of water, Lu Yuan stood up and clapped his hands. He smiled and said, "Share, let's go back." "Okay, let's go." Chihiro Snow smiled and took the initiative to hold Lu Yuan's hand. There was a warm smile on her face. Lu Yuan opened his mouth. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly felt the ground tremble. "What's going on?" Lu Yuan focused and furrowed his brow. This tremor seems to indicate that a large number of soul beasts are charging towards us. The snake spear Douluo's ears twitched as she said, "Let me take a look." As Lu Yuan spoke, his polychoria shone brightly. Through the layers of white fog, he could see that a large number of soul beasts were swarming towards them. Furthermore, these soul beasts were running with all their might, as if something terrifying was chasing after them. "It's a beast wave." Lu Yuan retracted his gaze and said, "I suspect that something has happened in the dense fog forest, which caused these soul beasts to run amok." After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow immediately said, "Then let's take a look inside." "Share, it might be very dangerous inside." Lu Yuan immediately advised her. He suspected that this matter had something to do with his check-in. Otherwise, it couldn't be so coincidental that it happened in the depths of the dense fog forest. Furthermore, there was a beast wave. "It's all right. With the snake spear Douluo and the thorny pufferfish Douluo around, even if there are 100,000-year soul beasts inside, we can still escape unscathed. Even if we can't defeat them, we can still escape." Chihiro Snow said. "Share, I'm worried that you'll be hurt." Lu Yuan said softly, "It's all right. Aren't you here? You won't let me get hurt, right?" Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes were fixed on Lu Yuan as she smiled. "Of course. If there's any danger, I'll be the first to stand in front of you." After hearing Chihiro Snow's words, Lu Yuan immediately replied. His tone was resolute and decisive, and there wasn't a trace of hesitation. After hearing this, Chihiro Snow's smile became even brighter. This feeling of being protected, especially by the man she loved, made her feel blissful from the bottom of her heart. "All right, don't worry so much. The two of us together can even fight against a soul Douluo. With the two seniors here, there won't be any danger at all. Don't worry." Furthermore, the dense fog forest is controlled by the martial soul palace. We have to find out what's happening inside. I want to see what's causing trouble in the depths of the dense fog forest. As Qian Runxue spoke, her beautiful eyes carried a trace of biting cold killing intent. Chapter 426. In the depths of the dense fog forest. Thick white fog shrouded the entire forest. If the other parts of the dense fog forest had sunlight shining through the white fog at noon, then even if the sun was high up in the sky, everything was still shrouded in white fog without any gap. Looking down through the white fog, a tall sacrificial altar stood on the ground. This sacrificial altar had a radius of 10 feet and a height of 10 feet. The entire sacrificial altar was bright red, and there were streams of fresh blood flowing through it. On the surface of the sacrificial altar, there was a crescent-shaped mark that was dark red in color. The blood on the sacrificial altar flowed into the crescent-shaped mark and was swallowed by it. At the bottom of the sacrificial altar, there were all kinds of corpses of soul beasts within a radius of 100 feet. An endless stream of blood flowed from these corpses to the sacrificial altar before being absorbed by the sacrificial altar and swallowed by the crescent-shaped mark. As the blood flowed in, the crescent-shaped mark started to shine with a demonic red light. 100 feet away from the sacrificial altar, there was a group of black-robed people. "Your Majesty, the Blood Moon sacrificial altar has reached its final stage. It won't be long before the disciples of our holy church can set foot on this continent." Among the group of black-robed people, a man with a white scorpion embroidered on his robe spoke to a middle-aged man with his hands behind his back. This middle-aged man had a conspicuous crescent-shaped mark on his robe. "Yes, it's all thanks to our leader's wisdom. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known that such a continent existed under the heavens. It's perfect for our holy church to conquer." It's just that the strength of soul masters on this continent is much stronger than that of our sun-moon continent. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to hide in the dense fog forest and sacrifice the blood of soul beasts to the blood moon sacrificial altar. In fact, human blood is much more delicious. As he spoke, the middle-aged man licked his lips as if he was savoring the aftertaste. Blood Emperor Majesty is right. It's all this damned Martial Soul Palace's fault. Over the years, they've killed so many of our brothers. We must find the Martial Soul Palace and take revenge, the man called White Scorpion said. His tone was filled with deep hatred for the Martial Soul Palace. That day won't be far away. As long as the blood sacrifice at the Blood Moon altar is completed and the spatial gate is opened, our Holy Church's team will be able to enter directly and arrive at the Douluo continent in an instant. When that happens, our Holy Church's foundation will be enough to rival the Martial Soul Palace. Furthermore, I've already sent people to contact the evil soul masters on this continent, and I've already established some connections with them. When the time comes, we'll coordinate with the Sun Moon Empire's Soul Tool Army, and we'll be able to overturn this continent. It's not in vain that we've gone through all these hardships and crossed the sea to come here. Everything is for the glory of the holy sect. The middle-aged man said, looking like a fanatical believer. Yes, everything is for the glory of the Holy Church. White Scorpion patted his chest and said with a fanatical expression. Oh right, White Scorpion, where's Mosuo? Didn't he go to catch soul beasts? Why hasn't he returned yet? The middle-aged man asked. Mosuo went to catch soul beasts that are 50,000 years old and above. The blood sacrifice of such soul beasts is more effective. However, soul beasts that are 50,000 years old and above are relatively strong. I think he'll need to spend a lot of time. Mosuo might be rushing back now. White Scorpion said. Yes. The middle-aged man nodded and said, now that the blood sacrifice at the Blood Moon altar has reached its final stage, there can't be any mistakes. Therefore, you have to be on high alert. You can't let go of even the slightest sign of trouble. Have the guards been arranged? They've been arranged. They're all soul emperors, and their strength is not bad. They're enough to take on the role of guards. White Scorpion said. That's good. The middle-aged man nodded slightly. His gaze once again drifted towards the tall Blood Moon altar. A strange smile hung on his pale face, and his eyes flickered with a blood-red light. Abuchi, let's go. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan beside her and said softly. Cher, do you really want to go? There might really be danger. I keep having this uneasy feeling in my heart. Lu Yuan asked. Yes, this dense fog forest is the territory of our Martial Soul Palace. We definitely can't allow outsiders to run amok here. Furthermore, we have two titled Douluo here, so there won't be any danger. Abuchi, you're thinking too much, Chihiro Snow said with a resolute expression. Ari, all right. Since you want to go, then let's go together. However, you have to follow beside the two seniors at all times. You can't act on your own. Seeing Chihiro Snow's resolute expression, Lu Yuan knew that she had made up her mind. He immediately said with a serious expression. Okay, I promise you. Seeing Lu Yuan's serious expression, Chihiro Snow nodded. Then let's go. As Chihiro Snow spoke, she possessed her martial soul. The eight-winged angel exuded a holy golden light, and Chihiro Snow rose into the air. Seeing this, Lu Yuan also possessed her martial soul. Two huge dragon wings extended from her back. As her dragon wings flapped gently, Lu Yuan's body also floated in the air. Chihiro Snow flew in front, while Lu Yuan flapped her dragon wings and followed closely behind. The Snake Spear Douluo and Frenzy Rhino Douluo followed behind them. So many soul beast. Flying in the air, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but exclaim as she looked at the densely packed group of soul beasts running away. This scene was simply too shocking. With a rough look, there were at least 5,000 soul beast. Furthermore, there were still more and more of them. 5,000 soul beasts and 5,000 people were two completely different things. Seeing them surging towards them from the sky was truly a shocking feeling. Something must have happened inside the dense fog forest. Abuchi, let's go. We have to speed up. Chihiro Snow flapped her wings and quickly flew forward. Lu Yuan nodded and followed closely behind her. The two of them increased their speed. They were like two streaks of golden light as they flew past. Suddenly, Qian Renshue's speed gradually slowed down. This was because the white fog in front of them was getting thicker and thicker. It was so thick that it was starting to affect Chihiro Snow's vision. In such an environment, Chihiro Snow couldn't see more than 200 meters away with her naked eye. With her speed, she could cover 200 meters in an instant. Therefore, under such circumstances, she had no choice but to slow down. Lu Yuan flapped his dragon wings and flew side by side with Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow was a little impulsive at times, especially when it came to matters related to the martial Soul Palace. She was always very concerned. Therefore, Lu Yuan had to keep an eye on her. He didn't want her to be hot-headed and rush forward recklessly. She might end up getting hurt. Just as Lu Yuan was about to say something to Chihiro Snow, the system's voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 427. Check-in begins. Check-in location, dense fog forest. Check-in time, half an hour. Just as Lu Yuan was about to speak to Chihiro Snow, the system's voice rang out in his head. However, this didn't make Lu Yuan happy. Instead, it made his heart skip a beat. Check-in began, which meant that they were close to the point of the incident, or had already entered the point of the incident. Share, stop. Lu Yuan suddenly shouted. He flapped his dragon wings and stopped where he was. Lu Yuan's expression was solemn as he flapped his dragon wings. What's wrong, Abuchi? Chihiro Snow immediately stopped when he heard Lu Yuan's voice. 4 pairs of snow-white wings flapped gently. Chihiro Snow's face was filled with doubt. I think we've entered the important area. We have to be careful. Stay by my side and don't run around, Lu Yuan said. Oh. Chihiro Snow nodded slightly when he saw Lu Yuan's serious expression. It was rare to see him so serious. It seemed like this incident wasn't simple. I'd better listen to him. Chihiro Snow muttered in his heart. Why aren't we moving, Prince Yuan? The snake spear Douluo and thorny pufferfish Douluo stopped behind the two of them. The snake spear Douluo couldn't help but ask. Lu Yuan didn't answer. He only asked, Seniors, how far can you see in this thick white fog? The white fog here is much thicker than outside. Furthermore, this white fog is strange. It can weaken spiritual power. I can only see within 500 meters at most, the snake spear Douluo said. What about you, thorny pufferfish? Lu Yuan asked. About the same as old Shi. 500 meters, the thorny pufferfish Douluo said. Lu Yuan turned to Chihiro Snow. Before Lu Yuan could say anything, Chihiro Snow said, I can only see within 200 meters. But Abuchi, why are you asking this? Chihiro Snow asked, puzzled. Lu Yuan's double pupils flickered as he said, this white fog weakens the detection of spiritual energy, and at the same time, obstructs our vision. If there is a trap in front of us, can we react in time? The snake spear Douluo said, if I hadn't been paying close attention, it would have been very difficult to discover it. After all, this white fog affects one's spiritual power too much. That's why we need to slow down and pay more attention to our surroundings. Don't rush in recklessly, Lu Yuan said. Yes, young Master Yuan is right. The snake spear Douluo stroked his beard and said. Then let's continue. Slow down a little and pay more attention, Lu Yuan said. Everyone started to move forward. This time, they slowed down significantly with Lu Yuan's reminder. Everyone became more alert as they paid attention to their surroundings. Lu Yuan flew slowly as he activated his double pupils to observe his surroundings. The white fog that could obstruct others' vision was useless to him. Just like that, they advanced for another few hundred meters. Suddenly, Lu Yuan's eyes focused as a black figure appeared in front of him. This figure was dressed almost exactly like the Soul Douluo. Lu Yuan immediately recognized him. Evil Soul Master. Lu Yuan's double pupils flickered. Just as he had expected, this had something to do with these evil Soul Masters. What's the situation, Abuchi? Chihiro Snow asked when he saw that Lu Yuan had stopped again. Yes, it's another evil soul master. He's a soul emperor. He's about 500 meters away from us. He seems to be on guard. There must be a big fish inside, Lu Yuan said. Is that so? Chihiro Snow said softly. Young Master Yuan, let me deal with him, the Snake Spear Douluo said. Yes, I'll leave it to you, Senior Snake Spear. That Soul Emperor is in the northeast. However, you have to be careful. Don't make too much noise, Lu Yuan said. Yes, I won't, the Snake Spear Douluo said as he quickly moved forward. Cher, we have to be more careful. There's definitely more than one guard like him, Lu Yuan said as he continued to scan the area with his double pupils. Suddenly, his gaze focused again. Elder Thorny Pufferfish, there's another evil soul master about 400 meters to our left. I'll leave him to you. Lu Yuan's voice could be heard. All right, leave it to me. The Thorny Pufferfish Douluo nodded and pounced towards that soul emperor. Abuchi, your double pupils are really useful. Chihiro Snow couldn't help but say softly when he saw that Lu Yuan was casually picking out the evil soul masters who were hiding in the dark. What's wrong, Cher? Are you envious? Lu Yuan asked with a smile. Yes, I'm envious. Your double pupils are a little too powerful. Although you can't add soul rings to them, I feel that they're even stronger than your golden dragon, Chihiro Snow said. Lu Yuan smiled when he heard this. There was no doubt that the dual pupils were stronger than the golden dragon. After all, their origins couldn't be compared at all. One was only a product of a small world like the Douluo continent, while the other came from a top-tier large world. The gap between them was just too great. It was important to note that Lu Yuan's double pupils were only at the most superficial level. Not to mention other things, even if his double pupils were at the initial success stage, he would be able to kill a god. However, it was extremely difficult to reach the initial success stage. Different worlds naturally had different difficulties in cultivation. On the Douluo continent, the speed of cultivating double pupils was much slower than in the perfect world. I'm afraid there's no hope of catching up to you in this lifetime. Chihiro Snow sighed and looked a little disappointed. She was also someone who wanted to be strong. She didn't want to be weaker than anyone, even if that person was her man. It was a pity that Lu Yuan's talent was too heaven-defying. She had no choice but to accept it. All she could do was try her best to keep up with Lu Yuan's footsteps and not be left too far behind. Hihi, Cher, no matter how strong I am, I'm still your man. Besides, if I don't become stronger, how can I protect you in the future? Lu Yuan chuckled and said. You only know how to say nice things to make me happy. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan reproachfully, but her face was full of smiles. Lu Yuan smiled and didn't mind. He flapped his dragon wings and his double pupils flickered with light again. Another one. Good fellow, he's hidden really well. Lu Yuan's eyes focused. 600 meters in front of him, an evil soul emperor was hiding on a branch of a big tree. The dense branches and leaves covered his body tightly. If it wasn't for the fact that Lu Yuan had noticed his slight movement, he might not have been able to discover this person's whereabouts so easily. I want to see how many people you've hidden in this forest. Lu Yuan clenched his fists and said coldly. Chapter 428. The strength of his polychoria lay in the fact that he could see people from afar in the dense fog forest, but they couldn't see him. No matter how evil a soul emperor was, he was still a soul emperor. Even the snake spear Douluo could only see things within 500 meters. What about them? The distance they could see would definitely not exceed Qian Renshue's. In fact, it might even be less than her. One had to know that Qian Renshue was an unparalleled genius. How many soul emperors could compare to her? These evil soul masters weren't qualified yet. Young Master Yuan, it's settled. The snake spear Douluo appeared. Following this, the thorny pufferfish Douluo also appeared beside Lu Yuan. Speaking of which, we seem to have taken care of 8 evil soul emperors. These evil soul masters are really generous. They sent 8 soul emperors just to stand guard, Lu Yuan said. He was a little surprised. Furthermore, Lu Yuan discovered that these soul emperors were rather rich as he touched their rings. 8 of them had actually dropped 2 soul bones. What a pleasant surprise. Coincidentally, these 2 soul bones were left arm bones. Coincidentally, the 2 titled Douluo already had left arm bones. Chihiro Snow didn't need them, so Lu Yuan kept them. Speaking of which, it was a little too coincidental. His mother opened the door for him. Furthermore, these 2 soul bones weren't very old. Only one of them was more than 10,000 years old. No matter what, soul bones were still soul bones. They were still very valuable. Therefore, they were still considered quite valuable. Sending 8 soul emperors to stand guard means that these evil soul masters must be up to something big inside the dense fog forest. That's why we have to stop them, Chihiro Snow said. Yes, Schwerer is right, we have to make a trip there. Before this, Lu Yuan had been worried that Chihiro Snow would be injured, and he had thought of retreating. However, the appearance of these 8 evil soul emperors made Lu Yuan want to investigate further. Lu Yuan couldn't help but clench his fists when he recalled the miserable state of Fengming village. He didn't want to see that kind of hellish scene a second time. These evil soul masters must be planning something that could endanger the entire continent. They had to stop something like this. Then let's continue our journey, Chihiro Snow said softly. Blood Moon Altar. The middle-aged man called Blood Emperor looked at the tall Blood Moon altar and sensed the tranquility of the surroundings. Suddenly, he frowned. Why do I have a bad feeling all of a sudden? Could it be that something has happened? White Scorpion, the middle-aged man shouted. Blood Emperor, what are your orders? White Scorpion took 2 steps forward, lowered his head slightly, and asked respectfully. Are you sure you've arranged for the surrounding sentries? The middle-aged man asked. I'm sure. I've arranged for 8 soul emperors to be sentries. They're all no more than 500 meters away from each other. As long as there's a sound in one place, the others will be able to sense it, and they'll send a message to inform us. There's no message now, so we should be safe, White Scorpion said. Hearing this, the middle-aged man frowned. White Scorpion's arrangements were very appropriate. It was almost impossible to silently kill 8 soul emperors in this vast white fog without making a sound. Logically speaking, it should be a sure thing. However, for some reason, the middle-aged man felt uneasy, as if something had gone wrong. What he didn't know was that White Scorpion's arrangements were very appropriate. However, they had encountered Lu Yuan, who could ignore the white fog and find everyone's hiding place. How could a titled Douluo fail when dealing with a soul emperor when he knew their hiding place? What Xu Yangyi had overlooked was a giant wall that had opened its double pupils. Lu Yuan and the others slowly advance. Because they were already in the depths of the dense fog forest, they didn't fly. Instead, they walked. After all, flying was very conspicuous, especially for Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow. Their bodies were emitting golden light, and they were easily discovered. After all, light was always very bright. Even if they couldn't see clearly due to the layers of white fog, they could still feel the existence of the light. It was like covering fire with a layer of white gauze. Even if there was a layer of white gauze blocking the light could still seep through the gaps. A soul emperor might not be able to see what was 200 meters away, but he could feel the light from 200 meters away. Therefore, in order to hide their tracks and make it easier to scout the situation, they withdrew their martial souls and chose to walk on the ground. This way, it wouldn't be easy to attract attention. Everyone gradually walked. Suddenly, Lu Yuan's footsteps paused. His double pupils constricted, and a tall altar appeared in front of his eyes. This altar was quite a distance away from him. It should be around 600 meters away. The altar was covered in blood, and the blood flowed towards the altar from the surroundings. Then, the blood flowed into the center of the altar. Lu Yuan's double pupils flickered, and the scene around the altar was completely seen by Lu Yuan. Within 300 meters of the altar, there were all kinds of corpses of soul beasts. Some of them were still dripping blood. The blood was bright red, and they should have died not long ago. Some of them were already shriveled up. It was obvious that they had been dead for many days, and their blood had dried up. With a rough look, There were at least a few thousand soul beasts. Some were big, and some were small. Some had 100 years of cultivation, and some had 1,000 years of cultivation. There were even several 10,000-year soul beasts near the altar. Creak. Lu Yuan couldn't help but clench his fists. There were so many soul beasts. One could imagine how much they had killed. These evil soul masters really deserved to die. If they had only hunted soul beasts for soul rings, it would still be reasonable. After all, soul masters needed soul beasts to advance. However, they had hunted thousands of soul beasts for a blood sacrifice. This was too much. They were simply inhumane, and they wantonly killed living things. These evil soul masters really deserved to die. It was no wonder that so many soul beasts were fleeing. It turned out that there was such a tragic scene inside the dense fog forest. The endless amount of blood and corpses of soul beasts made Lu Yuan's hair stand on end. Abuchi, what's wrong? Seeing Lu Yuan's angry appearance, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but grab Lu Yuan's hand. What did Abuchi see? Why is he so angry? Lu Yuan's gaze shifted slightly. Just as he was about to speak, a pair of pitch-black eyes that flickered with a bloody light suddenly locked eyes with him. The intense pressure from that gaze startled Lu Yuan, and he couldn't help but blurt out, "Not good." Chapter 429. Oh no. Lu Yuan's heart raced as he stared into the eyes that flickered with blood-red light. A strong sense of uneasiness rose in his heart. "Share, let's go. We've been exposed." There was a tinge of urgency in Lu Yuan's voice. That pair of eyes just now were simply too oppressive. That was definitely a titled Douluo. And it wasn't an ordinary titled Douluo. It was at least a transcendent Douluo. The pressure from that pair of eyes was very similar to that of Tang Hao. Even if it wasn't as strong, it wasn't much weaker. It definitely wasn't something that the Snake Spear Douluo and Thorny Pufferfish Douluo could deal with. Damn it, how can there be such an expert among evil soul masters? Lu Yuan couldn't help but curse in his heart. What? Chihiro Snow was confused as he asked. Let's go. They have a transcendent Douluo. As Lu Yuan spoke, he grabbed Chihiro Snow's hand. He flapped his dragon wings and flew out of the dense fog forest. The Snake Spear Douluo and Thorny Pufferfish Douluo hurriedly followed after seeing this. Lu Yuan's expression was very serious as he increased his speed to the maximum. He knew very well what an evil transcendent Douluo meant. They could easily kill an ordinary titled Douluo. Even if the two titled Douluo beside him attacked together, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. No wonder he felt a little uneasy about this check-in mission. There was actually a transcendent Douluo in this group of evil soul masters. He was 600 meters away from the altar. Even the Snake Spear Douluo and Thorny Pufferfish Douluo could only see 500 meters in such a dense white fog. However, that evil soul master could accurately sense his position from 600 meters away. His terrifying spiritual power was evident. System, how much time do we have left? Lu Yuan couldn't help but connect to the system. This was the only way he could get out of this predicament. After all, there were two titled Douluo, and even if they only drew two ordinary titled Douluo, for titled Douluo were enough to stop a transcendent Douluo. After all, even hyper Douluos were divided into different levels. The aura emanating from the hyper Douluo was slightly inferior to that of Tang Hao, so he was most likely around rank 96, which was roughly on par with the Sky Azure Ball Python. After all, not every transcendent Douluo was called Tang Hao, who could blow up rings and jump ranks. There are still 8 minutes left. Host, please don't be anxious. The system's cold voice sounded. 8 minutes. I'm afraid you'll have to watch me die. Lu Yuan cursed inwardly. Who knew how many battles could be ended in 8 minutes? Immediately, his dragon wings flapped wildly, and his speed increased to the maximum. Want to run? The middle-aged man who was called Blood Emperor retracted his gaze and a trace of ridicule appeared in his eyes. What did he see? One soul emperor, one soul ancestor, and two titled Douluo. No wonder he kept feeling that something was wrong. It turned out that some little rats had snuck in. Furthermore, That soul ancestor kid was a little strange. He could actually see so far. No wonder he could break through the defensive line set up by those soul emperors. With such eyesight, it really wasn't difficult for him to find them. White scorpion, blood vine, black spider, the three of you come with me. Capture those little rats and those two titled Douluo. With their blood, the blood moon altar can complete the blood sacrifice. As the middle-aged man spoke, he called out the remaining 3 soul Douluo. As for the rest of you, stay here. Yes, Your Majesty. Let's go. The middle-aged man spoke indifferently, a trace of scarlet in his eyes. Little rats, you won't be able to escape. Abuchi, what exactly happened? You said there was a transcendent Douluo on the other side? Chihiro Snow, who was in Lu Yuan's embrace, couldn't help but ask softly as she looked at Lu Yuan, who had a solemn expression on his face. Yes, there's an evil transcendent Douluo on the other side. His aura isn't much weaker than Tang Hao's. We definitely aren't his match. With our current speed, we definitely can't compare to him. He'll catch up to us sooner or later. Share, when the time comes, Senior Snake Spear, Senior Thorny Pufferfish, and I will do our best to stop him. You should take advantage of this opportunity to escape. Escape as far as you can. Lu Yuan stared at Chihiro Snow's face, and a trace of gentleness flashed across his eyes. It didn't matter if something happened to him, but Chihiro Snow couldn't be harmed at all. Abuchi, what are you saying? I definitely won't leave you alone. Chihiro Snow stared at Lu Yuan, her beautiful eyes filled with seriousness. Even if I have to die, I want to die with you. Share. Looking at the seriousness in Chen Renshua's watery golden eyes, Lu Yuan could feel the deep affection that Chen Renshua had for him from the bottom of her heart. His heart couldn't help but feel a little warm. Lu Yuan opened his mouth and was about to speak, but a slightly hoarse voice caused his movements to suddenly stop. TSK, TSK, TSK. What an enviable relationship. But it's a pity that none of you can escape today. Lu Yuan's dragon wings opened wide, and his figure came to a stop. In front of them, a middle-aged man wearing a black robe with a blood-red crescent moon imprint appeared out of thin air. Looking at Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow in front of him, a trace of mockery flashed across his eyes. Little mouse, your senses are quite sharp, and you run quite fast. But it's just a small trick. You're still a little lacking if you want to escape from my hand. The middle-aged man stared at the two of them and spoke indifferently. Looking at the middle-aged man in front of him, Lu Yuan's expression didn't change, but his eyes were filled with seriousness. This evil titled Douluo was very strong. You two little mice are young, but your cultivations aren't low. You're not inferior to my sect's holy son. It's a pity that such geniuses are going to fall in my hands today. Furthermore, the two of you give me a strange feeling, especially you. The middle-aged man chuckled. Suddenly, his eyes focused, and he stared at Chihiro Snow. That kind of holiness and light is really disgusting. Chihiro Snow couldn't help but shiver after being stared at by the middle-aged man. All the hair on his body stood on end. This man's gaze was really too terrifying. That kind of blood and killing seemed to envelop him, and he couldn't help but tremble. Share. Seeing Chihiro Snow in such a state, Lu Yuan hugged him tightly. His clear energy and divine power spread out and enveloped Chihiro Snow. The effect of his clear energy and divine power instantly soothed the trembling in Chihiro Snow's heart. Oh! Seeing the clear energy and divine power around Lu Yuan, the middle-aged man seemed a little surprised, and the interest on his face increased. Little mouse, I'm getting more and more interested in you now. The middle-aged man looked at Lu Yuan, and there was a strange look in his eyes. Not only could this little mouse see so far in this white fog that blocked spiritual power and vision, but he could also help others escape the influence of his blood and killing. How interesting. Chapter 430. You're interested in me? Actually, I'm interested in you too. I didn't expect there to be such a powerful evil soul master like you. Lu Yuan smiled faintly when he heard this. Lu Yuan was a little helpless when he saw that there were still 6 minutes left on the system interface. He had never wanted time to pass as quickly as he did now. Therefore, Even though he was facing a transcendent Douluo who was an evil soul master, and even though his back was drenched in cold sweat, he was still very calm and composed. This was because he couldn't panic. Firstly, he wanted to stall for time until the countdown ended. Secondly, Chihiro Snow was right beside him. If he panicked, what would Chihiro Snow do? He was Chihiro Snow's pillar of support. As a man, protecting his woman was his basic responsibility. Furthermore, he didn't even need to think to know what would happen to a holy and radiant angel if she fell into the hands of these evil soul masters. Therefore, no matter what, Lu Yuan couldn't panic right now. I believe your status among evil soul masters isn't low. Lu Yuan laughed as he asked. Haha, this is the first time I've seen such a courageous young man like you. You're very talented, and your temperament isn't normal either. I'm starting to like you. If you're willing to join the Holy Church, I can consider sparing your life. The middle-aged man was impressed when he saw that Lu Yuan wasn't panicking at all. His temperament isn't normal. Furthermore, this kid in front of me is only 13 or 14 years old, but he already has a soul power of around rank 50. He's truly a genius. If I really want to calculate, even the Holy Sun is slightly inferior to him in terms of talent. If I can recruit him into the Holy Church and work for the Holy Church, it's not a bad choice. The middle-aged man thought to himself. Oh, what's in it for me to join the Holy Church? Lu Yuan asked, but his mind was spinning. Why aren't the snake spear Douluo and the thorny pufferfish Douluo here yet? They should be faster than me. Are you waiting for those two titled Douluo? The middle-aged man seemed to have seen through Lu Yuan's thoughts and said, the two of them are entangled with my 3 men. I'm afraid they won't be able to come for a while. It won't be easy to rely on them to save you. Lu Yuan was shocked when he heard this. If the snake spear Douluo and the thorny pufferfish Douluo were being held back, wouldn't that mean that he and Chihiro Snow would have to deal with this transcendent Douluo? A soul ancestor and a soul emperor against a transcendent Douluo. Lu Yuan didn't feel confident just thinking about it. Haha, it seems that you've seen through my thoughts. It's just that you haven't answered me yet. What are the benefits of joining your holy church? You can see that I have 2 titled Douluo with me. If your holy church isn't strong, I won't be interested in joining. Lu Yuan chuckled as he spoke. Yes, you're right. If you have 2 titled Douluo with you, it means that your identity isn't simple. Now, I'm even more interested in recruiting you into the Holy Church. The middle-aged man's eyes sparkled. It's even better if your identity isn't simple. As long as I can subdue this young man, I can coordinate with the Holy Church when they attack this continent. This young man will be very useful. Don't you want to know the strength of our Holy Church? I can only tell you that my title is the Blood Emperor. I'm one of the 4 emperors. Above the 4 emperors, there are the twin emperors. Above the twin emperors is our leader. Below us, there are the 8 great protectors. Every one of them is a titled Douluo. What do you think of our Holy Church's strength now? The middle-aged man smiled faintly. The Holy Ghost Church's strength combined was enough to fight the martial Soul Palace head-on. Furthermore, he wasn't afraid of telling this young man about the Holy Church's strength. If this young man didn't agree, he would die. If he agreed to join the Holy Church, he would be one of them. There was no harm in knowing. He had always done things flawlessly. Hiss. After hearing this, Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow couldn't help but gasp. The 2 of them looked at each other, and they could see the shock in each other's eyes. Lu Yuan's polychoria flickered as his heart trembled. From the Blood Emperor's words, he could guess that the 4 emperors were all transcendent Douluo. They were all around rank 96. Perhaps some of them were even rank 97. Since the twin emperors could stand out, and they were called emperors, they must be much stronger than the 4 emperors. It was very likely that they were rank 98 pinnacle Douluo. As for the leader, his strength was obvious. He was definitely an ultimate Douluo. In addition to the 8 great protectors, there were a shocking 15 titled Douluo. Even with the Holy Ghost Church and the Pontiff's Palace, there should only be about 20 titled Douluo in the Martial Soul Hall. After all, evil titled Douluo couldn't be dealt with by ordinary titled Douluo. Their methods were rather strange. If Lu Yuan's Dragon King Palace wasn't included, the Martial Soul Palace might not be able to win if they fought the Holy Ghost Church head-on. The Martial Soul Palace had Sendryu, but the Holy Ghost Church also had an ultimate Douluo. As for Bibidon, although he was an ultimate Douluo, he couldn't use his full strength because of the Luosha inheritance. He was only slightly stronger than the Golden Crocodile. He wasn't an ultimate Douluo. The Holy Ghost Church also had 2 rank 98 pinnacle Douluo. The fighting strength of the higher-ups was almost the same. The Holy Ghost Church was actually so strong, it was a little shocking. It was no wonder that the Holy Ghost Church was the strongest Soul Master organization in the entire Sun Moon Empire. At this point, and after seeing the Blood Moon altar, how could Lu Yuan not know that the Holy Ghost Church was actually the Holy Ghost Church from the Sun Moon continent? It was just that some of them had crossed the ocean to the Douluo continent. Otherwise, the Martial Soul Palace would have known about such a strong organization on the Douluo continent. Furthermore, the Martial Soul Palace and Evil Soul Masters didn't like each other. A war would have broken out between them a long time ago. It wouldn't be as peaceful as it was now. The only possibility was what Lu Yuan guessed. They had crossed the ocean to the Douluo continent. After that, they had built an altar on the Douluo continent. They wanted to open a spatial door to receive the Evil Soul Masters from the Sun Moon continent so that they could invade the Douluo continent. After going through this series of events and information, Lu Yuan was almost able to deduce the entire sequence of event. However, the more he deduced, the heavier his heart became. The Holy Ghost Church from the Sun Moon continent was eyeing them covetously from the outside. Inside, there were also various large sects jumping around. The Martial Soul Palace's current situation was a little grim. It seemed like if he could escape safely this time, not only did he have to increase his hunting of evil soul masters and guard against the Holy Ghost Church, but he also had to get rid of some of the hidden threats on the Douluo continent. For example, he had to quickly get rid of the Clear Sky sect and the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. It was also time to kill fleas like Tang San and Dai Mubai. He didn't have time to waste with them now. Chapter 431. Lu Yuan's thoughts turned in his mind. So, what do you think? The middle-aged man, who was known as the Blood Emperor, asked softly. If your church is really as strong as you say, then I'm naturally willing to join. Lu Yuan smiled and said. Wasn't it just a temporary act of civility? This wasn't a problem for him. As long as he signed in, he would receive 2 titled Douluo lottery cards. As long as he could draw a transcendent Douluo, he would be able to teach this Blood Emperor a lesson. Even if that didn't work out, with 2 titled Douluo holding them back, it would be easy for them to escape. Since you're willing to join our holy church, then give us a proof of your allegiance. The middle-aged man said. What proof of allegiance? Lu Yuan asked. That's very simple. The girl in your arms is your girlfriend, right? I don't like the holy and holy aura on her. As long as you kill her, I can guarantee that you'll join our holy church. Furthermore, with your talent, you might even become our holy church's 3rd holy son. The middle-aged man laughed softly. Hearing this, Lu Yuan's gaze immediately turned cold and his eyes were filled with a piercingly cold murderous intent. How could he kill Chihiro Snow? This Blood Emperor was really courting death. Wasn't it just death? When had he ever been afraid? So what if he was a transcendent Douluo? Even if he died, he would make this evil soul master in front of him break 2 teeth. It seems like you're not willing. Ah, what a pity. It wasn't easy to find such a good seedling. Seeing Lu Yuan's cold gaze, the middle-aged man spoke softly. There was a tinge of regret in his voice. However, since you're not willing, then the 2 of you can die. If you can die together, it'll be considered as fulfilling your relationship. The middle-aged man said softly. Suddenly, he struck out with his palm. Shui, move aside. The middle-aged man suddenly attacked. Lu Yuan hurriedly pushed Chihiro Snow away. However, he couldn't react in time. He was directly struck down from mid-air. Abuchi. Chihiro Snow, who had been pushed to the side, was enraged when he saw Lu Yuan being sent flying. He flapped his 4 pairs of white wings and chased after Lu Yuan. Ha! The middle-aged man snorted. Then, he moved and plunged down. Although it was just a casual slap, it wasn't something a level 50 brat could withstand. That brat was probably on his last breath right now. Bang! Lu Yuan's body violently collided with the ground, and a deep pit immediately appeared on the ground. Abuchi. Chihiro Snow landed on the ground and ran towards Lu Yuan. After being hit by a transcendent Douluo and falling from such a high place, even if Abuchi's physique was comparable to a Soul Douluo's, he was probably severely injured now. Chihiro Snow was burning with anxiety. Her eyes couldn't help but redden. If something happened to Abuchi, then what was the point of her living? Chihiro Snow ran to the edge of the deep pit. She knelt on the ground and stretched out her hands to feel around in the pit. Cough, cough. Lu Yuan grabbed Chihiro Snow's hand and climbed out of the deep pit. There was a lot of dust on his body, and his hair was a little messy. There was a lot of mud stuck to his hair, but he wasn't injured at all. Abuchi, are you all right? Chihiro Snow stared blankly at Lu Yuan, who was still alive and kicking, with a trace of surprise on her face. Coupled with the tears that were about to fall from her eyes, she looked very strange. Don't worry, Cher. I'm fine. Lu Yuan patted the dust off his body. His chest was glowing with a faint silver light. It was this silver light that protected him. I really have to thank you this time, Lu Yuan muttered in his heart. He was completely unprepared for the palm strike, and the fact that he was able to fall from the sky unscathed was all thanks to the protection of Gu Yuana's reverse scale. After all, this reverse scale could completely resist any attack below the titled level. The middle-aged man who was called the Blood Emperor was a transcendent Douluo, but he had just casually attacked without unleashing his martial soul. The power of that attack was only equivalent to the full power of a Soul Douluo who was over rank 80. He hadn't reached the titled level yet. That was why he hadn't been able to break through the reverse scale's defense. However, when he fell from the sky, the powerful impact almost caused the reverse scale's defense to collapse. Just as Lu Yuan stood up, a beautiful lady with long silver hair suddenly opened her purple eyes at the bottom of the Lake of Life in the Great Stardow Forest. Her eyes were cold, and there was a trace of killing intent in them. The reverse scale has been activated. Her red lips parted slightly, and her voice carried a bone-chilling coldness. Ever since she gave the reverse scale to that man, this was the first time it had been activated. That man was in danger. No matter who it is, anyone who dares to hurt him must die. The silver-haired woman said calmly. Her voice carried a trace of unquestionable determination and decisiveness. She gently stretched out her jade-like hand and drew a line in the air. A pitch-black spatial crack appeared in front of her. She took a step forward and dove into the spatial crack. Lu Yuan patted the dust off his body. A golden light flashed in his hand, and the golden dragon spear appeared in his hand. He secretly contacted the system. How many minutes left? Host, there are still 3 minutes left. The system's cold voice sounded. 3 minutes. Damn it, I'm going all out. Lu Yuan's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. Wasn't it just going all out? Who didn't know how to do that? Cher, let's go together, Lu Yuan said. Okay. Chihiro Snow nodded and said, then let's fight this Blood Emperor together. Even if we die, it'll be worth it if we can die together with you. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan, her beautiful eyes full of love. When Lu Yuan was struck from the sky, she felt as if her heart had been torn apart. The pain was unbearable. She finally understood what it felt like to be torn apart. If this man in front of her wasn't there, she might really be like a walking corpse. Since that was the case, she might as well accompany him. Cher. Hearing Chihiro Snow's words, Lu Yuan's heart was filled with emotions. Abuchi. Chihiro Snow whispered softly. Ta. The middle-aged man's figure gradually descended. He looked at Lu Yuan, who was unscathed, with a trace of surprise in his eyes. Interesting. You're still unscathed after taking a blow from me. Little rat, you're quite capable. However, this emperor doesn't have time to play with you. I'll send you to the Western Paradise as soon as possible. As the middle-aged man spoke, his entire body emitted a dense blood-red light. A blood-red giant with bull horns on its head appeared behind the middle-aged man. Yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 9 soul rings shone brightly under its body. At the same time, a powerful aura spread out from its body. Chapter 432. This aura was filled with killing intent and evil, causing Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow to furrow their brows. Lu Yuan was slightly better off. He had a strong resistance to the aura of slaughter, and his clear divine power contained all things. Therefore, the evil in the aura made him feel a little uncomfortable, but it didn't affect him much. However, Chihiro Snow was a little uncomfortable. Her 8-winged angel was the most holy and radiant martial soul, and it hated evil auras the most. With such a strong evil killing intent enveloping her, Chihiro Snow's condition was greatly affected. This martial soul is the blood demon. Looking at the tall and sturdy figure behind the middle-aged man, with bull horns on his head, a green face with fangs, and a huge blood-red trident in his hand, wasn't this the legendary blood demon martial soul? The blood demon martial soul is also a top-notch martial soul among evil martial souls. In terms of rank, it's not inferior to Teacher's Death Spider Emperor and Soul-Devouring Pearl Emperor. Lu Yuan muttered to himself. Since there were holy martial souls in this world, such as the 6-winged angel, radiant holy dragon, radiant phoenix, and holy unicorn, there were naturally evil martial souls, such as the blood demon, darkness devil puppet, death demonic lock, death blood scythe, and so on. In fact, Bibidon's Death Spider Emperor and Soul-Devouring Pearl Emperor, strictly speaking, were also evil martial souls. Their martial souls had evil attributes. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been valued by the Rakshasa god. After all, the Rakshasa god was the world's darkest and most filthy god, and was the opposite of the 6-winged angel god. However, evil martial souls were only evil martial souls. Having an evil martial soul didn't mean that one was an evil soul master. The reason why evil soul masters were called evil soul masters wasn't just because of their martial souls, but more because of their actions. The reason why evil soul masters were hated by everyone was because their cultivation methods were too cruel and bloody. They were inhumane, and they ran amok, killing people and arson wantonly. It was also because of this that they were called evil soul masters. It would be too arbitrary to judge someone as an evil soul master just based on their martial soul. Not to mention other things, was Lu Yuan's god-slaying spear fierce enough? Was the slaughter enough to win? In terms of ferocity and slaughter, the god-slaying spear was the ancestor of all such martial souls on the Douluo continent. After all, the god-slaying spear was known as the most ferocious weapon in the world. How could it be ordinary? Even if it wasn't the original, just a martial soul was more powerful than all the superdivinity tools on the Douluo continent. Its ferocity was unimaginable. However, was Lu Yuan an evil soul master? He wasn't. Therefore, one's martial soul wasn't the standard to determine whether or not a person was an evil soul master. However, there was one thing that was indisputable. Those who possessed an evil martial soul had a high chance of becoming an evil soul master under certain inducements. This was because the evilness of a martial soul could subtly influence a soul master's personality. The stronger the evil martial soul, the greater its influence. Lu Yuan knew this very well. After all, even the clear aura scripture couldn't completely block off the god-slaying spear's influence. If he hadn't obtained his polychoria and the clear aura divine seed, it was really hard to predict what kind of personality Lu Yuan would have right now. However, one thing was for sure. Lu Yuan, who was under the influence of the god-slaying spear, would definitely kill people like he was killing chickens. He wouldn't be affected at all. The middle-aged man released his martial soul, and a strong pressure that belonged to a transcendent Douluo swept across the entire place. Under this pressure, Lu Yuan's figure was a little bent. Chihiro Snow was also under great pressure, and her delicate body was trembling a little. A transcendent Douluo was a transcendent Douluo. Even though Lu Yuan's physique was comparable to a soul Douluo's, it was still very difficult for him to withstand this pressure. He channeled his soul power, and the golden dragon roared into the sky. A loud dragon roar resounded. His golden dragon's bloodline was channeled, and his golden dragon armor covered his body. He held his golden dragon spear in his hand. Facing a transcendent Douluo, Lu Yuan naturally used all his abilities. On the other side, Chihiro Snow's body also shone with golden light. The eight-winged angel released a holy light, and a golden domain instantly spread out. It enveloped Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan, and the middle-aged man inside. The angel domain weakened the opponent's attributes by 10%, while the allies' attributes were increased by 10%. Furthermore, the holy light and the power of purification in the angel domain were very effective against evil. Domain. A look of astonishment flashed across the middle-aged man's eyes. A soul emperor actually has an innate domain. He's really a genius. Furthermore, he has a rank 50 soul ancestor that's far superior to normal soul rings. This time, I've really seen it for myself. However, the gap between us isn't something that can be offset by a mere domain. Blood demon domain. A blood-red domain spread out from the middle-aged man's body, and it instantly spread out. The two domains collided, and almost instantly, Chihiro Snow's angel domain was forcefully broken. In terms of rank, the blood demon domain was far inferior to the angel domain. However, in terms of strength, Chihiro Snow was only rank 65, while the middle-aged man was rank 96. The gap between them was too great. Chihiro Snow suffered a backlash when the domain was broken. Her delicate body trembled, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. "Cher, are you all right?" Lu Yuan took 2 steps forward and supported Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow shook her head. She held the holy sword in her hand, and golden flames burned in her golden eyes. "I don't have time to play with you. I'd better get rid of the two of you quickly." Blood demon domain. The blood-red domain enveloped the two of them, and in the blink of an eye, the two of them were in a sea of blood. TSK. A wisp of smoke came out. A corner of Chihiro Snow's shoe was corroded, and she couldn't help but tremble. She gently flapped her wings, and her body rose into the air, farther away from the sea of blood. This blood has a corrosive effect. Lu Yuan frowned slightly. He had the golden dragon armor, which was immune to all negative effects, such as burning, freezing, and so on. Naturally, he was also immune to corrosion. This sea of blood didn't have much of an effect on him. However, it was a considerable threat to Chihiro Snow. Moreover, his strength seemed to have been suppressed by a lot. Thinking about it, it must be the effect of the domain. "Cher, are you all right?" Lu Yuan asked. "In this sea of blood, my holy power is greatly restricted. The surrounding aura is constantly colliding with my angelic soul power, and my soul power is constantly being consumed," Chihiro Snow said softly. Her beautiful eyes blinked slightly, and it seemed that she was not used to the environment here. "Hihi, you've experienced the power of my blood demon domain. Next, I'll send you to heaven," the middle-aged man said as he slammed his palm down in the air. A huge blood-red energy palm slammed directly toward the two of them. "Cher, dodge." Lu Yuan flapped his dragon wings and pulled Chihiro Snow back, narrowly avoiding the energy palm. The huge palm slammed into the sea of blood, and immediately, blood-red seawater splashed everywhere, and waves surged. Chapter 433. Lu Yuan moved to stand in front of Chihiro Snow, blocking the blood-colored seawater. The blood water was extremely corrosive, and if it landed on Chihiro Snow's body, it would definitely cause serious injuries. This was something that Lu Yuan would not allow. Even after being splashed by the blood water, the golden dragon armor was still as dazzling as before. It had to be said that the golden dragon turtle's soul bone was truly wondrous. "You actually dodged it. What about now?" The middle-aged man moved and raised his arm slightly. The blood-red giant behind him also raised its arm and slapped towards the two of them. The Blood Emperor's speed was greatly enhanced by the blood demon domain. That sweep just now was equivalent to teleportation. Although Lu Yuan's Polychoria could see everything clearly and dodge in time, Chihiro Snow couldn't. Unpredictable storm. The golden dragon spear drew a circle and a golden halo floated out. Under the gaze of the middle-aged man, The halo enveloped him. Hey! The middle-aged man's palm was struck by Lu Yuan's unpredictable storm, and he actually froze on the spot. A soul ancestor's skill actually managed to control me? The middle-aged man's face was filled with shock. He originally didn't put Lu Yuan's attack in his eyes, but he didn't expect that a light halo would actually be able to restrict him. Unpredictable storm, as long as it hit the target, could forcibly restrict an opponent for 8 seconds. But if the opponent's strength was too much, the duration of the restriction would be greatly reduced. Even so, the restriction would still last for at least 3 seconds. This was the strength of the sea god's divine skill. Share, hurry up and do it. We only have 3 seconds. Lu Yuan shouted and struck out with his golden dragon spear again. Millennium space-time. Lu Yuan raised his spear and advanced forward. Man and spear one. The spear intent of the vast ocean surged out crazily. At the same time, he used the second form of the sea god's halberd art, Millennium Spacetime. Fifth soul skill, Sacred Sword. After receiving Lu Yuan's reminder, Chihiro Snow immediately unleashed his most powerful single-target attack skill. Coupled with his Class 6 Holy Sword, this attack was the strongest attack that Chihiro Snow had ever unleashed. The golden dragon spear stabbed into the middle-aged man's body and pierced through his shoulder. Blood splattered everywhere as the golden dragon spear unleashed its devouring power. Lu Yuan wasn't going to show any mercy to evil soul masters. He was going to kill them while they were down. At the same time, Chihiro Snow's attack arrived. His Class 6 Holy Sword struck the middle-aged man's other shoulder. Immediately, a deep sword wound was left on the middle-aged man's shoulder. Fresh blood gushed out as the divine power and purification power continued to surge into the middle-aged man's body. Ah, you're courting death. After being injured to such an extent by 2 ants that he didn't take seriously, the middle-aged man raised his head and roared furiously. Then, a bloody light burst out from his body. Oh no, the 3 seconds are up. Share, retreat. Lu Yuan immediately understood what was going on when he saw the bloody light that was bursting out from the middle-aged man's body. He pulled Chihiro Snow and quickly retreated. However, even though they were fast, they were still affected by the bloody light. Immediately, they spat out mouthfuls of blood. Both of their figures were sent flying backward. Cough, Polychoria's immeasurable light. Lu Yuan spat out a mouthful of blood as he flew back. His Polychoria flashed, and bluish-gold light gathered in his eyes. 2 streaks of bluish-gold light shot towards the middle-aged man. The immeasurable light was extremely fast. Unless one was teleporting or was prepared beforehand, it was very difficult to dodge it. After all, how could a person's speed compare to the speed of light? The immeasurable light struck the middle-aged man's body. Immediately, another tragic cry rang out. Given the offensive strength of the immeasurable light, even a titled Douluo wouldn't be unscathed after being struck by it. Lu Yuan revealed a smile on his face. Ordinary soul skills were completely useless against the middle-aged man. To be precise, he only had 3 trump cards that could possibly hurt a titled Douluo. One was the sea god's divine skill, the second was the Polychoria's immeasurable light, and the last one was, Lu Yuan flapped his dragon wings and stopped himself. At the same time, he caught Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow's face was pale. Her physique was far inferior to Lu Yuan's. Even with Lu Yuan's physique, which was comparable to a Soul Douluo's, and his golden dragon armor, he was still severely injured. He was even coughing up blood, let alone Chihiro Snow. Lu Yuan hugged Chihiro Snow in his arms. He watched as golden-red blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. A look of pity flashed across his eyes. Cher's ribs were probably broken. She was seriously injured. The offensive strength of a transcendent Douluo could only be described as terrifying. Just the explosive might of the immeasurable light was enough to injure the 2 of them so severely. If the middle-aged man hadn't been careless and allowed himself to be restrained by Hua Yuhao's unpredictable storm, he and Cher probably wouldn't have been able to hurt him even if they had fought with their life. After all, he and Cher couldn't resist a single palm from him. They could only dodge. A transcendent Douluo was indeed a transcendent Douluo. He was indeed very powerful. I want the 2 of you dead. The middle-aged man walked out of the sea of blood step by step. There were 2 obvious wounds on his body. His right shoulder had been pierced and devoured by the golden dragon spear, leaving a huge hole. His left shoulder had been slashed by Chihiro Snow's holy sword. The sword wound was deeply engraved into his bone, and blood was still flowing from it. His chest was also a mess of flesh and blood. This was an injury left behind by the infinite light of Polychoria. The middle-aged man walked towards the 2 of them. His eyes were extremely cold. He was a transcendent Douluo, but he had been injured to such an extent by 2 ants. This was a humiliation that he would never be able to wash away. Demon God's blood trident. The middle-aged man's 5th soul ring lit up. A huge, blood-red trident appeared in his hand. It flew directly towards Lu Yuan and Hu Yuhao. A hint of determination appeared in Lu Yuan's eyes as he looked at the huge trident flying towards him. "Cher, haven't you always liked to ask about my secrets?" Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow with a gentle gaze. "Abuchi." Chihiro Snow stared intently at Lu Yuan. His eyes were filled with worry. He called out softly. There was an unconcealable weakness in his voice. "Today, I'll let you see my biggest secret." Lu Yuan laughed softly. He carried Chihiro Snow on his back and walked forward. His expression was calm as he faced the huge, blood-red trident flying towards him. There wasn't a single fluctuation in his expression. The golden light in his hand disappeared, and the golden dragon spear disappeared. God-slaying spear. Lu Yuan stretched out his right hand and shouted softly. An indescribable aura suddenly spread out and instantly swept out. Chapter 434. God-slaying spear. As soon as he finished speaking, a 2-meter-long, pitch-black spear appeared in Lu Yuan's hand. It shone with a dense blood-red light. At the same time, an earth-shattering aura suddenly erupted. A dense murderous aura soared into the sky, instantly shattering the entire blood demon domain. The blood demon domain disappeared, and the familiar dense fog forest returned. This powerful aura shot into the sky, as if it was going to pierce through the sky. Lu Yuan held the god-slaying spear tightly in his hand. The powerful strength made him feel so comfortable that his eyes narrowed. So what if he was a transcendent Douluo? He still dared to fight him. Soul power, spiritual power, and blood power were injected into the god-slaying spear. This god-slaying spear seemed to require a lot of energy. Once it was born, it kept on absorbing Lu Yuan's spiritual power. Lu Yuan took a small step forward and stepped out. Facing the huge blood energy fork, Lu Yuan held the god-slaying spear and gently swung it. The spearhead collided with the huge blood energy fork. In just an instant, the huge blood energy fork that looked mighty and awe-inspiring was completely shattered into nothingness. What martial soul is this? As he looked at the god-slaying spear in Lu Yuan's hand, the middle-aged man's voice trembled. The killing aura and ferocious aura in the spear were suffocating. Even from so far away, he could still feel immense pressure. His heart couldn't help but tremble. Abuchi. Chihiro Snow, who was on Lu Yuan's back, looked at the god-slaying spear in Lu Yuan's hand. Her face, which was already pale, became even paler. The killing aura in the spear was extremely dense. Furthermore, it exuded an extremely powerful aura. Even the majesty of the angel statue that Chihiro Snow had seen before was not worth mentioning in front of this spear's aura. The divine power that she was so proud of was completely crushed by this spear. This spear was simply too ferocious. When did Abuchi possess such a martial soul? Share, watch carefully. Today, I'll show you what the strongest martial soul in the Douluo continent is. Lu Yuan said softly. He raised his right hand and pointed the tip of the god-slaying spear at the middle-aged man. Instantly, an endless amount of murderous energy locked onto him. Not good, danger, intense danger. The middle-aged man's heart immediately became vigilant. With an unprecedented seriousness, he felt a fatal threat from that gun. If he didn't deal with it properly, he might very well die. Eat my spear. Lu Yuan's figure flashed. His right hand thrust forward, and the long spear pierced straight out. In an instant, The space seemed to have been pierced. A black spear that was suffused with blood-red light instantly appeared in front of the middle-aged man and pierced towards his forehead. Not good. Blood demon true body. The middle-aged man shouted. His seventh soul ring shone, and his entire person turned into a blood demon with horns on his head. He had a green face and fangs, and he held a trident in his hand. The murderous energy of the god-slaying spear had already locked onto him. He couldn't dodge this spear at all. He could only take it head-on. The huge blood demon waved his trident and collided with Lu Yuan's god-slaying spear. Bang! The trident was broken, and the huge blood demon hurriedly moved away. This movement actually allowed him to avoid a fatal crisis. The pitch-black spear directly struck his arm. Instantly, one of his arms was separated from his body. Endless blood-red light was like maggots, corroding the blood demon's body. After his arm was separated from his body, the huge blood demon immediately howled in pain. At the same time, the blood demon gradually dissipated, and the middle-aged man's figure was revealed. His left arm had completely disappeared, and streaks of blood-red light left behind by the god-slaying spear were still invading his body. The middle-aged man hugged his head with his right hand and howled in pain. Although the spear had only pierced his left arm, his spirit was still severely injured. The god-slaying spear didn't just attack the physical body. It was even more powerful in corrupting one's soul. In the wilderness, the god-slaying spear's murderous energy was something that even saints didn't want to come into contact with. It was something that could even corrupt a saint's primordial spirit. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a thing as a fallen saint. Although Lu Yuan's god-slaying spear was only a martial soul, it wasn't difficult for it to corrupt a transcendent Douluo's soul. The middle-aged man howled in pain. At the same time, he used his palm like a knife and cut off the remaining part of his left arm that was contaminated by the god-slaying spear's power. He stopped the god-slaying spear's power from continuing to invade his body. Again, seeing that the middle-aged man had actually dodged the god-slaying spear's fatal attack and had only injured his arm, Lu Yuan wanted to stab him again. Just as he lifted his right hand, his mind suddenly went blank. The god-slaying spear had actually disappeared without a trace. The spear earlier had actually depleted all of his soul power. He didn't even have much spiritual power left. He couldn't even maintain the god-slaying spear's form. Damn it, what a scam. It was just one spear. Lu Yuan cursed in his heart. He shook his head, feeling a little dizzy. He had expended too much of his spiritual power, and was feeling a little dizzy. Ha ha ha, your soul power must have been depleted. The middle-aged man had stood up. His left shoulder had been cut off, and only his right arm was left. He laughed loudly, and there was a bone-deep murderous intent and hatred in his eyes. Go to hell, you little bastard. The middle-aged man revealed a crazed look in his eyes. He suddenly slapped out with his claw, and directly slapped towards Lu Yuan and Hu Yuhao. Now that Lu Yuan had expended all his energy, and Chihiro Snow was severely injured, the two of them basically couldn't dodge this claw. Seeing the huge blood-red claw coming towards them, Lu Yuan flung Chihiro Snow, who was behind him, and met the huge blood-red claw head-on. Bang! The silver light shield instantly exploded. This meant that the silver reverse scale's defense had been broken. Crack! A cracking sound was heard, as if something had broken. It turned out that Lu Yuan's golden dragon battle armor had been completely shattered by this claw, and the fragments of the armor flew in all directions. Dong! Lu Yuan's body flew back more than 10 meters and landed heavily on the ground. His body was already deformed, and the bones in his body were broken into countless pieces. His white robe was dyed red by endless blood, and had long become a blood-red robe. Abuchi. Seeing Lu Yuan beaten to such a state, Chihiro Snow, who had just gotten up after being flung to the side, immediately let out a heart-wrenching scream. Tears kept falling from his eyes. Go to hell, you little bastard. Seeing that Lu Yuan still seemed to be breathing, the middle-aged man's eyes flashed with a hint of savagery. His figure flashed, and he slapped towards Lu Yuan again. He wanted to smash this little bastard who had cut off his arm into minced meat. You're courting death. However, at this moment, a spatial crack suddenly split open in midair, and a crisp female voice filled with endless anger came out from it. A snow-white, soft, and jade-like hand directly slapped towards the middle-aged man. Although it was launched later, it arrived first, and landed directly on the middle-aged man's body just as his right hand slapped down. Suddenly, the middle-aged man's body suddenly exploded, leaving only a bloody foam on the ground. Chapter 435. In mid-air, a silhouette with long, silver-white hair slowly appeared. She slowly retracted her hand, and her eyes were filled with boundless fury and killing intent. Her purple eyes were filled with boundless pressure as she swept her gaze across Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow felt his heart tighten as the noble, mysterious, and dignified purple eyes swept across him. The pressure was almost suffocating. Her heart thumped, and even the tears that had been falling from her eyes stopped. Her gaze was high and mighty, as if she viewed everyone else as ants. Chihiro Snow had never seen such an existence before. This silver-haired lady gave him immense pressure. She seemed to be suppressing the entire world just by standing there. She had seen Senryu's pressure before, and knew how powerful Long Xiaoyaro was. However, both Senryu and Long Xiaoyaro weren't worth mentioning in front of this silver-haired lady. It was as if they weren't even on the same level. Senryu and Long Xiaoyaro were at the limit of their strength. They could be considered the strongest existences below the gods. However, this silver-haired lady was far above them. Furthermore, Chihiro Snow wouldn't forget how this silver-haired lady had only extended her snow-white hand and patted the rank 96 evil soul master, the Blood Emperor, who was a transcendent Douluo, had been turned into a cloud of blood. Not even his corpse was left behind. This silver-haired lady didn't seem like someone from the mortal world. Could she be? An absurd thought flashed across Chihiro Snow's mind. However, the more he thought about it, the more logical it seemed. He was also more certain of his guess. Only someone who had truly reached that level could possess such a strong aura. Only someone like that could possess such a transcendent aura. Jiu Yuana's purple eyes stared at Chihiro Snow. For some reason, a strange emotion was spreading in her heart. It made her very uncomfortable, as if a corner of her heart had been dug out. This was especially so when she saw Lu Yuan push this lady to one side, and was the one who was struck by the blood claw. Apart from her heartache and boundless fury, there was also an indescribable feeling that spread in her heart. This caused her, who had always been gentle, to be unable to control her emotions. Moreover, this woman had the aura of those detestable gods of the divine realm, and this made Jiu Yuana's eyes flash with a hint of ferocity. She raised her right hand slightly, and energy began to gather in her palm. Suddenly, a voice entered her ears, causing her to tremble and the energy in her hand to dissipate. Enaya. This was an extremely weak voice. Although it was a call, it was more like a whisper. But with Jiu Yuana's cultivation, no matter how soft the sound was, she could still hear it. Lu Yuan. Jiu Yuana's eyes rippled when she heard this voice, and there was a wisp of urgency in her eyes. She'd been blinded by the indescribable emotions in her heart just now, and she'd actually forgotten the most important thing. Jiu Yuana's figure moved, and she directly appeared in front of Lu Yuan. She looked at Lu Yuan, whose white robes had long been dyed red with blood, and whose body was deformed. Her eyes were filled with deep concern and heartache. She took a few steps forward and hugged Lu Yuan's body in her arms. Looking at Lu Yuan's pale face, a trace of pity flashed across her eyes. She used her spiritual power to check Lu Yuan's injuries, and the more she checked, the more Jiu Yuana's brows furrowed. All the bones in his body were broken. His meridians were broken, and the soul power in his body had completely dried up. He only had a little spiritual power left, and more than half of his blood had been lost. Right now, Lu Yuan was like a candle flame in the cold wind, and the slightest mistake would extinguish it completely. With this kind of injury, even the esoteric character would be powerless. Although the Esper secret character could be reborn from a drop of blood, there were two situations where it was powerless. The first was when one's life was at its end, and in this situation, the Esper secret character was useless. The second was when the Esper secret character was exhausted. The so-called Esper secret character was actually the power of essence, chi, and spirit. If these three powers were exhausted, the Esper secret character would not be able to be used. Right now, Lu Yuan was in such a situation. The god-slaying spear had sucked away all of his soul power, most of his blood essence, and a large amount of spiritual power. After he stabbed out with the spear, there was almost no energy left in his body, and only a trace of spiritual power was left to barely maintain his consciousness. And this bit of spiritual power was not enough to use the Esper secret character, and could not satisfy the consumption of the Esper secret character. Thus, the reason why Lu Yuan was still alive was because of his powerful life force and physique. That was why he was barely holding on to his last breath. Once this breath was exhausted, even a deity would not be able to save him. Don't hurt Cher. Lu Yuan's lips parted slightly, and a small voice came out with great difficulty. Although he was heavily injured, thanks to his polychoria, his eyesight was very good. Jiyu Yuana's actions just now had been completely captured by his eyes. Jiyu Yuana actually wanted to make a move on Chihiro Snow. This made Lu Yuan's heart burn with anxiety. He could guess Jiyu Yuana's thoughts, and he also understood Jiyu Yuana's disgust towards gods. Moreover, when a woman was jealous, it was very scary, so he could only remind Jiyu Yuana. This was the only thing he could do now. Lu Yuan. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Jiyu Yuana's delicate body trembled. Her purple eyes looked at him, full of grievances, and also a trace of questioning. A feeling called jealousy rose in her heart. Why was this man still worried about that woman when he was already in such a state? This made Jiyu Yuana's heart feel very uncomfortable. I beg you, don't hurt Cher. Looking at Jiyu Yuana's expression, Lu Yuan said softly with pleading eyes. Seeing Lu Yuan's appearance, Jiyu Yuana's heart was even more sour. When had this man ever been so humble? Today, he was actually begging her for a woman, which made Jiyu Yuana's mood fluctuate a little. Is it worth it? Jiyu Yuana asked softly. It's worth it. Lu Yuan smiled and said, I love her, and I think it's worth it to do anything for her. If it were you, it would be the same, Lu Yuan stared at Jiyu Yuana, and his eyes were full of sincerity. Seeing this, Jiyu Yuana was silent for a moment, and then said, Okay, I promise you. Hearing this, Lu Yuan smiled very brightly. A trace of blood flowed out of his mouth, and his injury began to act up. Lu Yuan's spirit was a little absent-minded. He looked at Chihiro Snow, and then looked at Jiyu Yuana. His eyelids began to fight and slowly close. Ding, the sign-in mission is completed. The reward is issued. Congratulations to the host for increasing the age of all his soul rings by 5,000 years. You have received 2 title Douluo draw cards. Just as Lu Yuan was about to faint, the system's voice sounded. What a fraud system. This was the last thought in Lu Yuan's mind. Chapter 436. Lu Yuan's eyes were tightly shut, and he had completely fainted. It was already very impressive that Lu Yuan could remain conscious for so long with such serious injuries. Jiyu Yuana felt a sharp pain in her heart as she looked at the unconscious Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan's life energy was getting weaker and weaker. She had to go back and treat him as soon as possible. Jiyu Yuana carried Lu Yuan in her arms and walked over to Chihiro Snow. Abuchi. Qian Runxue could not help but cry out in alarm when she saw that Lu Yuan had completely fainted and was covered in blood. She struggled to stand up and wanted to go forward to check on the situation. Jiyu Yuana frowned as she looked at Chihiro Snow's actions. She unleashed her aura, and Chihiro Snow's legs turned to jelly as he fell to the ground. Jiyu Yuana looked at Chihiro Snow before looking at Lu Yuan in her arms. She suppressed the impulse in her heart and threw Lu Yuan into the spatial crack in midair. Where are you taking Abuchi? Leave Abuchi behind. Chihiro Snow exclaimed as Jiyu Yuana was about to disappear with Lu Yuan in her arms. He extended his right hand as if he wanted to grab onto something. You, take care of yourself. Jiyu Yuana paused when she heard Chihiro Snow's voice. Her lips parted slightly as her cold voice rang out. After that, she leapt into the spatial crack with Lu Yuan in her arms. Watching Jiyu Yuana and Lu Yuan's figures disappear, Chen Renshue's outstretched right hand fell down powerlessly. Her eyes were blank and empty as she sat on the ground in a daze. Young mistress. At this moment, a voice sounded from behind. It was the snake spear Douluo and the thorny pufferfish Douluo. The two of them had expended a lot of effort before they managed to defeat the three evil soul Douluo. As soon as he escaped, he rushed towards Chihiro Snow and the others. But why was there only Chihiro Snow here? The snake spear Douluo and the thorny pufferfish Douluo rushed over. When they saw the traces of battle and the severely injured Chihiro Snow, they had a bad feeling. Young mistress. The snake spear Douluo called out. After hearing the snake spear Douluo's voice, Chihiro Snow lifted his head in a daze. He stared at the two of them with empty and numb eyes. Miss, why are you alone? Where is Mr. Yuan? The snake spear Douluo asked. After hearing the snake spear Douluo mention Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow's eyes lit up. Abuchi. She murmured softly as tears fell like rain. Abuchi was so badly injured. Who knew if he would? Young mistress, what happened? The snake spear Douluo asked again. Chihiro Snow ignored him. Her thoughts were spinning rapidly. Suddenly, Jiyu Yuana's beautiful figure appeared in her mind. When she thought about how strong Jiyu Yuana was, Chihiro Snow seemed to have grasped onto some hope. Yes, with how strong she was, she must have the ability to save Abuchi. Furthermore, she took Abuchi away, so she must have a way to save Abuchi. Chihiro Snow's eyes lit up. Abuchi will be fine. He must be fine. She struggled to stand up. Her expression was cold, and her voice was cold. Have you dealt with those evil soul masters? I'm a little ashamed. We only killed one of them. The other two escaped. The snake spear Douluo said, a little embarrassed. Two titled Douluo were up against three soul Douluo, and they had only won after fighting for so long. Furthermore, they had only managed to kill one of them, and the other two had even managed to escape. It had to be said that this was a disgrace to titled Douluo. After hearing this, Chihiro Snow's expression didn't change. Her golden eyes flashed with a bone-chilling killing intent. Evil soul masters, I will kill all of you. Miss, those evil soul masters might still be there. Do you want me to go and kill them? The thorny pufferfish Douluo asked. Go. Don't leave anyone alive. Apart from those two soul Douluo, if there's one less soul master, you can bring your head to me. Chihiro Snow said coldly. Yes, miss. The thorny pufferfish Douluo's heart skipped a beat. The killing intent in her voice made him a little fearful. Did something really happen to young Master Yuan? If something really happened to young Master Yuan because the two of them were entangled, then what would happen to them? As he thought until here, the thorny pufferfish Douluo couldn't help but shudder. He turned around and left. Since the miss had spoken, he had to do it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a good time. Miss, there are two soul bones here. The snake spear Douluo's eyes were sharp. He discovered two soul bones on the ground that flickered with energy undulations. One was a skull bone, while the other was a right arm bone. They were both 10,000-year soul bones. Therefore, he immediately picked them up and passed them to Chihiro Snow. These belong to Abuchi. I'll keep them for him. Chihiro Snow received the soul bones and placed them into his soul tool. The Blood Emperor had been turned into a mist of blood by the silver-haired lady. Furthermore, the silver-haired lady was clearly here for Lu Yuan. Therefore, he had to pass these soul bones to Lu Yuan. Miss, young Master Yuan. The snake spear Douluo tried to ask. Don't ask questions that you shouldn't ask. Chihiro Snow's gaze was cold. She already had a problem with these two titled Douluo. If they had come earlier, Abuchi wouldn't have. Yes, miss. The snake spear Douluo hurriedly shut his mouth. In his opinion, Chihiro Snow was like a volcano that was about to erupt. Although she was cold, The flames that were hidden inside her would definitely be terrifying if they were to erupt. The snake spear Douluo didn't dare to ask for trouble. Chihiro Snow glanced at the snake spear Douluo before retracting her gaze. She gripped the holy sword that Lu Yuan had given her tightly. Her heart was filled with worry for Lu Yuan. At this moment, she didn't care who the silver-haired lady was. She also didn't care if Lu Yuan was still hiding secrets from her. She only wanted Lu Yuan to return to her side in one piece. She finally knew that Lu Yuan was the most important person to her. As long as Lu Yuan was by her side, she didn't have to care about anything else. Abuchi, as long as you can return safely, Cher will listen to you. Chihiro Snow's golden eyes stared into the sky as she muttered to herself. Great Star Do Forest's core region. A crack suddenly appeared in mid-air. Jiyu Yuena's figure emerged from it. This was Di Tian's territory. Di Tian, Bai Ji, the Sky Azure Bull Python, Xiao Wu, and the severely injured Titan Giant Ape were all here. Jiyu Yuena's appearance immediately attracted everyone's attention. Master, what's this? Di Tian immediately saw Lu Yuan in Jiyu Yuena's arms. He couldn't help but ask when he saw how injured Lu Yuan was. Jiyu Yuena ignored Di Tian. She walked in front of the Titan Giant Ape. She opened her mouth slightly, and there was a hint of authority in her voice. Sacrifice to him. Chapter 437. Offer him a sacrifice. Jiyu Yuena's cold voice was filled with an irrefutable tone. When they heard Jiyu Yuena's voice, all the beasts could not help but look at Lu Yuan, who was in her arms. All the beasts were astonished when they saw his deformed body and the blood all over his body. How could Lu Yuan be so severely injured? Wasn't he protected by Long Xiaoyaro? My lord, how did Lu Yuan get so severely injured? Di Tian asked. Offer him a sacrifice. Jiyu Yuena didn't reply to Di Tian's question. Instead, she spoke again as she stared intently at the Titan Giant Ape, and a burst of powerful aura swept through the entire area. All of the soul beasts present began to tremble uncontrollably in the face of this aura. Even Di Tian's legs began to tremble, and he knelt onto the ground. The Sky Azure Bull Python and Bai Ji were even more affected. They were forced to prostrate themselves in the face of this aura. The one who suffered the most was Xiao Wu. Not only was she paralyzed on the ground, under the pressure of the aura, her originally cute little face was completely red. The mountain-like pressure seemed to want to completely crush her into pieces. Please calm down, my lord. Hurry up and offer the Titan Giant Ape. We've already agreed on this. Di Tian had never seen Jiyu Yuena so enraged before, and his heart was trembling with fear. Jiyu Yuena was simply far too terrifying to Di Tian, and it was as if she was going to attack him at the slightest provocation. Perhaps no one else had noticed this, but Di Tian had interacted with Jiyu Yuena for the longest time. The killing intent emanating from Jiyu Yuena's body had made Di Tian's heart tremble slightly. If the Titan Giant Ape didn't offer its sacrifice, then something extremely terrifying was going to happen. Roar. The Titan Giant Ape, who was also pinned to the ground, let out a loud roar. The sound was very obvious, expressing that it was willing to sacrifice itself to Lu Yuan. Jiyu Yuena's frosty expression slowly thawed upon seeing this, and she withdrew her aura as she said, "Let's begin then." All of the soul beasts heaved a sigh of relief as soon as her aura was withdrawn, and they clambered to their feet. Sister Xiao Wu. The Sky Azure Bull Python immediately caught sight of the pained Xiao Wu, and it couldn't help but call out to her. "I'm fine, Big Ming." Xiao Wu struggled to her feet, and her face was still a little flushed. Her lips were slightly pale, and she was gasping for air. There was a trace of fear in her eyes. That pressure was too terrifying. She was originally a soft bone rabbit. She looked crazy and daring, and liked to let others call her sister Xiao Wu. However, she was actually very timid. This was a common trait among rabbits, and it was their instinct. Jiyu Yuena's current strength had at least recovered to the standard of a second-tier god. Even if she only revealed a little of her aura, it was still not something that Xiao Wu could withstand. His divine might was like a prison. This was no joke. Ming. Xiao Wu took a few deep breaths and felt that her body had recovered quite a bit. She looked at the Titan giant ape beside her, her eyes red and filled with reluctance. Big roar. The Titan ape roared when it saw the reluctant Xiao Wu. Its roar carried a trace of calmness. To be honest, it had had enough of these days of being heavily injured and half dead. It was a Titan giant ape, and it certainly wasn't willing to lie here and wait for death. Compared to that, it would much rather sacrifice itself to Lu Yuan. At the very least, it wouldn't have to live like this. Furthermore, it would be able to contribute to the rise of All Soul Beast. Furthermore, if Lu Yuan were to become a god in the future, there was a chance that it would be resurrected. As such, the Titan giant ape was very calm and had no regrets about sacrificing itself. Sigh, this is also Ming's fate. This is an agreement I made with Master a long time ago, and it's very painful for Ming to live like this. A hint of grief appeared in the sky azure bull python's eyes. In the past, Ming had been the mighty king of the forest, but now, it was just a gorilla that could only lie here and wait for its death. However, even the sky azure bull python was saddened by the Titan giant ape's loss. If it hadn't been for the fact that it had overestimated the titled Douluo's power, Ming wouldn't have ended up in such a sorry state. Even though it had successfully killed the titled Douluo, it had also sacrificed Ming, and that was very upsetting to the sky azure bull python. Yes, I know. Xiao Wu nodded upon hearing this. She knew that sacrificing itself to Lu Yuan would be better for the Titan giant ape, but she was still rather reluctant to part with it. If there's nothing else, then you can all step aside. Jiu Yuana's cold voice rang out, and Di Tian and the sky azure bull python immediately retreated by over 10 meters. Only Jiu Yuana, Lu Yuan in her arms, and the Titan giant ape on the ground were left. Jiu Yuana gently placed Lu Yuan onto the ground, then gently stroked Lu Yuan's face with an affectionate look in her eyes. I want to know how you're going to explain this to me when you wake up, Jiu Yuana said in a soft voice. She had always been rather uncomfortable that Lu Yuan was seeing another woman, and it seemed that Lu Yuan's love for Chihiro Snow was even deeper than his love for her. Jiu Yuana was feeling jealous. This was the first time in tens of thousands of years that she had felt this way. As such, she was going to interrogate Tang Wulin after he woke up. One had to realize that even though she had a good temper, she could still get angry. After stroking Lu Yuan's face again, Jiu Yuana rose to her feet and nodded toward the Titan giant ape before making her way over to Di Tian and the others. Looking down at Lu Yuan, the Titan giant ape suddenly threw its head back and let loose a loud roar. Its body began to glow with crimson flames, and at the same time, a massive crimson magnetic field wrapped tightly around Lu Yuan's body. This was an energy magnetic field that would be created when a 100,000-year soul beast made a sacrifice. No one below the god rank could break this magnetic field, so once a 100,000-year soul beast made a sacrifice, it was virtually impossible to interrupt. Under the effects of the sacrifice, the Titan giant ape actually stood up and walked over to Lu Yuan's side. The crimson flames on its body burned fiercely. This was its cultivation and life force as a 100,000-year soul beast. The crimson light enveloped Lu Yuan's body, and under this power, Lu Yuan's ruptured body began to rapidly heal. At the same time, his martial soul was released without anyone controlling it. A loud dragon's roar rang out, and the golden dragon martial soul appeared once again. The crimson flames on the Titan giant ape's body slowly burned, and turned into the purest energy to repair Lu Yuan's body. Under the dense crimson light, Lu Yuan's deformed body slowly returned to normal. At the same time, the broken bones and meridians in his body began to heal at an astonishing speed. Chapter 438. 100,000-year soul beast sacrifice could heal almost any fatal injury. As long as the victim wasn't completely dead, as long as they still had a single breath of life left, they could be pulled back from the gates of hell. This was the power of 100,000-year soul beast sacrifice. Lu Yuan was gravely injured. All of his bones were shattered, and his meridians were severed. Even Jiu Yuana couldn't do anything about his injuries. In this world, the only thing that could save him was a sacrifice. 100,000-year soul beast's cultivation was ignited, and its power was terrifying. Its power was boundless and immeasurable. The Titan giant ape's massive body, which was originally more than 10 meters tall, started to shrink slowly as the blood flames burned. Because the crimson flames burned its cultivation and life force, its body naturally shrank as its cultivation decreased. When the Titan giant ape shrunk from 10-meter tall to 3-meter tall, it finally stopped shrinking. The crimson flames on its body became even more intense. The crimson flames continued to condense into a crimson ring of light. This was the 100,000-year soul ring that all soul masters dreamed of. The blood-red soul ring floated to Lu Yuan's body and entered his golden dragon martial soul. Immediately, a blood-red 100,000-year soul ring appeared on top of the 4 soul rings that had turned purple, and black due to the increase of 5,000-year soul ring. At the same time, the illusory image of a giant ape emerged from the Titan giant ape's body and entered the crimson 100,000-year soul ring. At this moment, something strange happened. Lu Yuan's eyes, which had been tightly shut this entire time, suddenly opened. His pupils shone with a bright light. A dense white light erupted from between Lu Yuan's eyebrows, enveloping the Titan giant ape projection that was about to enter the soul ring. Then, it was sucked into Lu Yuan's glabella. Lu Yuan's eyes scanned the area. A pitch-black soul bone that flickered with explosive energy fluctuations flew out and fused with Lu Yuan's left arm. Instantly, Lu Yuan felt an enormous power being born from his left arm. If this power were to erupt, it would definitely be earth-shattering. After the fusion of the soul ring and soul bone was completed, the blood-red energy field began to disappear. Lu Yuan's figure floated down from the sky. Right now, he was in a very good state. Not only had all of his broken bones and meridians healed, but his soul power had also been greatly enhanced. He was now at rank 55, and if not for the fact that the Titan giant ape's energy had been used to repair his body, he would have been even more powerful. Lu Yuan clenched his left fist tightly, and an explosive energy surged from it. After absorbing the Titan giant ape's soul ring and obtaining the Titan giant ape soul bone, his strength had broken through the shackles once again, and reached an even higher level. My current strength is at least 100,000 pounds, or even higher, Lu Yuan muttered to himself as he felt the explosive power in his body. 100,000-year soul ring and 100,000-year soul bone enhanced his body beyond imagination. Furthermore, the Titan giant ape was the representative of strength-type soul beasts. Apart from the golden dragon, which possessed ultimate strength, there were very few soul beasts of the same rank that could compete with the Titan giant ape in terms of strength. It could be said that the Titan giant ape's soul ring was the dream of all strength-type soul masters, but only a few people could obtain it. Coupled with the golden dragon armor that had been modified by the soul ring's energy, Lu Yuan had obtained a lot this time. Lu Yuan couldn't help but shake his head as he felt the Titan giant ape's soul, which was still in a daze in his sea of consciousness. This silly fellow probably doesn't know where he is, right? Forget it, I'll go and see him when I have time. Lu Yuan made up his mind. He lifted his head slightly and looked at the people not far away. He was still in the state of being possessed by his martial soul. The golden dragon flapped its huge dragon wings, and its draconic aura was like a prison. An extremely dense golden domain spread out from under his feet into the distance, and instantly enveloped everyone inside. This was the special ability that Lu Yuan's golden dragon had awakened when it became a Soul King, the golden dragon domain. The golden dragon domain reduced the enemy's stats by 10% within the domain, and increased the stats of all allies by 10%. It also came with a special skill, Draconic Aura, which suppressed all beast martial souls with bloodlines below Lu Yuan's golden dragon. Soul masters with ordinary beast martial souls would have their stats suppressed by 10%, while those with dragon bloodlines would have their stats suppressed by 20%. It also came with a special skill, Excitement, which increased the stats of all allies by 10%. Those with dragon bloodlines would have their stats increased by 20%. Furthermore, this was only the initial stage of the Golden Dragon domain. The suppression and amplification abilities would be even more powerful once it reached a higher level. It could be said that the Golden Dragon domain's ability had reached a whole new level. Especially in a group battle, Lu Yuan's Golden Dragon domain could be said to be a great killing machine. The basic amplification of the domain, coupled with excitement, could increase the stats of all allies by 20%. The stats of the Dragon Bloodline Soul Masters on his side would be increased by 30%. Furthermore, at the same time, if the opponent had a Beast Martial Soul, not only would their strength be reduced by 10%, under the effect of Draconic Aura, they would be suppressed by another 10%, which was 20%. And if the opponent also had a Dragon Martial Soul, it would be even worse. Under the effect of Draconic Aura, all of their stats would be suppressed by 30%. With this amplification and weakening, the gap between the two sides would be extremely large. The power of the Golden Dragon domain was terrifying. The Golden domain filled the entire arena. Lu Yuan stepped forward, his body shining with a rich golden light. Behind him was a huge golden dragon phantom, and under his feet, 5 purple, black, and red soul rings flickered with a dazzling light. Especially that blood-red 100,000-year soul ring, which flickered with a demonic color. 100,000-year soul ring. Not to mention that no one would be able to achieve it in the future, without taking into account the fact that he had twin martial souls. It was absolutely unprecedented. It could be said that after obtaining his 5th soul ring, Lu Yuan's strength ushered in a sharp increase. Now, it could be said that he had truly begun to soar. Although the current Lu Yuan was still dressed in blood-red clothes, his high-spirited spirit had not weakened at all. Under the contrast of the blood-red clothes, there was an additional smell of iron and blood, exuding a strong masculine aura. Looking at the lively and energetic Lu Yuan not far away, the corners of Jiu Yuana's mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. This kind of spirit is what this man should have. This man is destined to roam the 9 heavens, high and mighty. He shouldn't be so humble like that. Thinking of the scene not long ago, Jiu Yuana's purple eyes flashed with a trace of fluctuation. She still had some questions to ask Lu Yuan. Chapter 439. Lu Yuan took a small step forward, and a faint smile appeared on his face as he looked at everyone nearby. However, his eyelids twitched when he caught sight of Jiu Yuana, who was looking at him calmly from nearby. What was going to happen was going to happen, and there was no way to avoid it. Furthermore, it wasn't just Jiu Yuana, he was definitely going to have to face Chihiro Snow, Hulena, and Zhu Zhuqing when he returned. Just the thought of it made Lu Yuan's scalp tingle. He didn't think much of it when he was searching for Jiu Yuana, but he realized that there was a price to pay for being a playboy. However, he still had to face what was going to happen, so Lu Yuan continued onward with a fearless expression. Lu Yuan slowly withdrew his soul power and withdrew his Golden Dragon martial soul. The 5 dazzling purple, black, and red soul rings also disappeared. With a thought from Lu Yuan, the Golden Dragon domain that enveloped everyone began to slowly dissipate. Master. Lu Yuan strode forward, and the Sky Azure Bull Python hurriedly extended a salute. It was the lowest ranking person here, and it was a little awkward just thinking about it. Yes. Lu Yuan nodded at the Sky Azure Bull Python, then turned to the people around him and greeted them with a smile. Long time no see, everyone. Di Tian nodded in response, and said, "It's only been less than a year." The last time Lu Yuan had been here was when he had come to the Great Star Do Forest with everyone from Shrek Academy. At the time, it was Di Tian who had dragged him into the Great Star Do Forest, so Di Tian still had a vivid memory of him. Furthermore, 4 soul beasts with lifespans of thousands or even tens of thousands of years, less than a year really was not a long time. It may not be long for all of you, but it's been a while for me, Lu Yuan replied with a smile. Lu Yuan turned his gaze toward Jiu Yuana with a smile. It had been almost a year since they had last met. Not long ago, He had been severely wounded and on the brink of death, so he didn't have time to admire Gu Yuana's exquisite beauty. Looking at Gu Yuana's flawless features now, Lu Yuan felt that she had become even more beautiful. "Na." Lu Yuan called out in a gentle voice. "Yes." Gu Yuana nodded and took 2 steps forward. She held Lu Yuan's hand and said, "You've just recovered, and you're still covered with blood. It's not convenient for you to talk. Let them wait for a while. I'll take you to clean up. It won't be too late to talk after that." Gu Yuana's voice was very gentle, and her words were filled with concern. Her beautiful purple eyes were filled with gentleness. "Na." Looking at Gu Yuana, who was still as gentle as water, Lu Yuan's eyes flickered. Where could he find such a good girl like Gu Yuana? Among his 4 girlfriends, the most gentle one was Gu Yuana. The feeling of being with her was really wonderful, making him feel comfortable both physically and mentally. "Everyone, please wait for a moment. I'll come back and talk to you in detail later." Lu Yuan smiled as his gaze paused on the sky azure ball python and Xiao Wu. "I'll be back soon. The Titan giant ape is doing very well, and there are some things that I can't explain in a short while. I'll come back and tell you about it after I've sorted everything out, so there's no need to be too anxious." The sky azure ball python heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing Lu Yuan's words, and it immediately replied, "Yes, master." "Lu Yuan, you can go now. Big Ming and I will wait for you here." Xiao Wu waved the scorpion braid in her hand as she spoke in a crisp voice. She was looking directly at Lu Yuan, but when she saw Gu Yuana, who was standing beside Lu Yuan, she was slightly intimidated. Not long ago, Gu Yuana had exuded an unfathomable pressure, and even now, Xiao Wu was still feeling a little fearful. As such, Xiao Wu didn't even dare to look at her. In contrast, Lu Yuan, who was said to be a man in the form of a golden dragon, seemed to be a lot easier to get along with. Even though he could be very arrogant at times, he wasn't an unapproachable person. Xiao Wu was in awe of Lu Yuan due to their bloodline, but she wasn't really afraid of him. After all, Lu Yuan's temper was quite good. "Let's go then, Na." Lu Yuan nodded at Gu Yuana upon seeing this. "All right, let's go." Gu Yuana took the initiative to grab onto Lu Yuan's hand as they walked deeper into the Great Stardow Forest. If this was Di Tian's territory, then no one could go deeper into the Great Stardow Forest. This was Gu Yuana's territory, and the entrance to the underground space was also here. Aside from Lu Yuan and Di Tian, no one else had ever been here. "Take off your clothes and wash them with the spring water from the Lake of Life. You don't have to be afraid, there's no one here." Gu Yuana spoke softly as she placed her hand on Lu Yuan's belt. "Na, let me do this myself." Lu Yuan grabbed onto Gu Yuana's hand. He didn't have the habit of letting others take off his clothes for him. "Let me do it." Gu Yuana smiled as she pushed Lu Yuan's hand away. She undid his belt and removed the blood-stained clothes on Lu Yuan's body. Not long after, Lu Yuan was completely naked. However, Gu Yuana didn't seem to have any intention of backing down. Instead, she looked at Lu Yuan openly. Even though her face was a little red, she didn't shift her gaze away. "Na, aren't you going to back down?" Lu Yuan asked softly. "No, I want to look at you." Gu Yuana shook her head gently, and her expression was very serious. "Do you know? I almost didn't get to see you again." There was a hint of relief in her eyes. It was fortunate that she had arrived in time. If she had been a little later, that final palm strike would have landed on Lu Yuan's body, and Lu Yuan would have been dead for sure. His entire body would have been smashed into a pile of flesh and blood. It was also because of this that Gu Yuana was so furious. She had directly smashed that so-called Blood Emperor of the Holy Ghost Church into a bloody pulp. "Na." Lu Yuan looked at Gu Yuana with a gentle gaze. If she hadn't arrived in time, he would have been dead for sure. Even Cher wouldn't have been able to escape. That stupid system only finished signing in when Gu Yuana arrived. He was about to faint then. It really wasn't reliable at all. A thought flashed through Lu Yuan's mind at the thought of the two titled Douluo draw cards. He didn't know which two people he would be able to draw from those two cards. He hoped that they would be powerful. He didn't want them to be limit Douluos, but it would be best if they were hyper Douluos. After all, the emergence of the Holy Ghost Church had put a lot of pressure on Lu Yuan. He really needed to expand his Dragon King Palace right now. Otherwise, how was he going to deal with the upcoming bloody battles? All right, hurry up and bathe. After you're done, I have some things to ask you. Jiu Yuana said softly. Lu Yuan's body shuddered upon hearing this, and he sighed before stepping directly into the Lake of Life. The spring water of the Lake of Life was very clear and contained rich life force energy. It was very comfortable to soak in such spring water. It was no wonder that the sky azure bull python liked to soak in the Lake of Life. It really knew how to enjoy life. Chapter 440. With Jiu Yuana watching from the side, Lu Yuan wasn't in the mood to enjoy the comfort of the spring water of the Lake of Life. He quickly washed away the bloodstains on his body. After making sure that he was clean, Lu Yuan returned to the shore. He operated his soul power, dried the water droplets on his body, and changed into a clean set of clothes. After putting on a brand new set of white clothes, Lu Yuan once again returned to the familiar temperament of a banished immortal. Looking at Lu Yuan, who was like a deity, Jiu Yuana took 2 steps forward, like a gentle little wife, and gently tidied up Lu Yuan's collar. That gentleness like water really made Lu Yuan a little intoxicated. He couldn't bear it anymore, and pulled Jiu Yuana into his arms. If you have anything to ask, just ask, I will tell you everything I know. Gently hugging Jiu Yuana's delicate body, and lightly smelling the enchanting fragrance on her body, Lu Yuan couldn't help but be a little intoxicated. Burying his head in Jiu Yuana's crystal-like pure and smooth silver hair, Lu Yuan said softly. Okay, then let's go down and talk. Jiu Yuana's red lips opened slightly, and a clear voice sounded. Below the Lake of Life, in the strange underground space. Lu Yuan sat on a clean stone, and Jiu Yuana stood not far away, looking at him. What do you want to ask? Just ask. Looking at Jiu Yuana, Lu Yuan said softly. Lu Yuan, do you have another woman besides me, that Cher? Jiu Yuana looked at Lu Yuan, and a trace of seriousness appeared in her purple eyes. Yes, Cher is also my woman. Lu Yuan didn't hide it, and directly said it. Hearing this, Jiu Yuana's expression didn't change, and asked, she has the aura of a god, do you know? I know. Cher is the person chosen by the god of 6-winged angels. In the future, she will undergo the 9-angel examination and become the new god of 6-winged angels, Lu Yuan said. Since you know that she is the successor of the angel god, yet you are willing to sacrifice your life for her, you must know that you are already shouldering the fate of the soul beast. Those gods in the god realm will be your enemies in the future, so why are you still entangled with her? Could it be that everything you told me before was a lie? Don't you want to fight for a chance of survival for us soul beasts? Jiu Yuana stared intently at Lu Yuan with her purple eyes, which were filled with questions and grievances, as well as a hint of fear. She was afraid that this man would deceive her. If that was the case, she really didn't know what to do. She had already fallen deeply in love with this man. She didn't want to make a choice between her own race and the man she loved. No matter who she chose, it would be the most painful thing for her. She hoped that her man could stand on the same side as her. Work hard for the same goal. She didn't want them to be strangers, or even meet on the battlefield in the end. This was something she absolutely didn't want to see. What I told you is true. Since I promised you that I would fight for a chance to become a god for soul beasts, then I will definitely do my best to do it. I won't lie to you, Lu Yuan said with a serious expression. Then why did you find a successor of the angel god to be your girlfriend? Jiu Yuana looked at Lu Yuan with a burning gaze. Hearing this, Lu Yuan revealed a bitter smile and said, in fact, I was already with Cher before I met you. We have known each other since we were young. At that time, I didn't know about the relationship between myself and soul beasts. It wasn't until I met you that I found out about the origin of my bloodline and the relationship between myself and soul beasts. But at that time, I had already confirmed my feelings for Cher. I couldn't abandon Cher for soul beasts, right? What kind of person would I be if I did that? To be honest, would you like a person who abandoned you? Lu Yuan looked at Ji Yuana with a very serious expression. No. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Ji Yuana was silent for a moment, then slowly shook her head. She blinked slightly, looked at Lu Yuan, and asked, "But this woman is now the successor of the angel god. If she becomes your enemy after becoming a god in the future, what will you do? You have to know that the hatred between gods and soul beasts can't be resolved. This is a battle that is destined to start. Can you guarantee that this woman won't become your enemy after becoming a god?" "Cher won't." Lu Yuan's eyes were full of confidence. "No matter what I do in the future, even if I become the enemy of the god realm, Cher will support me without hesitation." If he couldn't be sure of Chihiro Snow's thoughts in the past, then now Lu Yuan was very sure that he was the most important person in Chihiro Snow's heart, just like Chihiro Snow was the most important person in his heart. His feelings for Chihiro Snow weren't in vain after all, and he still got something in return. "You trust her a lot." Hearing this, Ji Yuana's eyes flickered, and no one knew what she was thinking. "Of course I trust Cher, just like I trust you," Lu Yuan said, looking at Ji Yuana with shining eyes. Ji Yuana raised her eyes slightly and looked at Lu Yuan's double pupils. Alas! Ji Yuana sighed, and there was some disappointment in her eyes. Lu Yuan called softly. "Lu Yuan, if I want you to leave her, will you agree?" Ji Yuana said, looking at Lu Yuan with some expectation. "I won't," Lu Yuan said without hesitation. Hearing this, Ji Yuana's eyes became slightly gloomy. "Then what if she wants you to leave me? Will you agree?" Ji Yuana asked softly, and there was a trace of sadness in her eyes. "No, you are the person I have set my mind on, and no one can make me give you up." Looking at Ji Yuana's eyes full of tenderness, Lu Yuan said softly, and his voice was full of determination, "Whether it is Cher or you, in this life, you are destined to be my person, and I will not let go of either one of you." Looking at Lu Yuan's incomparably serious and determined face, Ji Yuana sighed again, and there was a helpless look on her face. Lu Yuan's attitude was clear, and she couldn't change it. She took 2 steps forward and threw herself into Lu Yuan's arms. A whiff of fragrance wafted over, and Ji Yuana's delicate body was already in his arms. Lu Yuan stretched out his hands and wrapped them around Ji Yuana's delicate waist. Do you have anything else to ask?" Lu Yuan asked. "No, I've asked all I wanted to ask." Ji Yuana shook her head lightly and said, "Then don't you feel angry? I have you, and I am still with Cher. If you are angry, you can hit me and scold me. That way, I will feel much better in my heart," Lu Yuan said. Hearing this, Ji Yuana shook her head lightly. "Although I feel a little uncomfortable, I know that it is very normal for an outstanding man like you to have 2 women. Doesn't Di Tian also have 2 women, Bicky and Ziji? The reason why I care about that woman is because she is the successor of a god, but since you believe her, I have nothing to say. As long as you are not lying to me, that is enough," Ji Yuana said softly. Chapter 441. Upon hearing Ji Yuana's words, Lu Yuan couldn't help but feel his heart soften, and a gentle look appeared in his eyes. Sure enough, Ji Yuana was still so reasonable. She knew that he had Chihiro Snow, yet she was still so gentle and magnanimous. As expected of the Silver Dragon monarch, her breadth of mind was extraordinary. "However, I don't only have her and Schwerer. There's something I want to tell you," Lu Yuan said softly as he blinked his eyes. "What is it?" Ji Yuana raised her little head from Lu Yuan's embrace, and a pair of beautiful purple crystal-like eyes stared straight at Lu Yuan with a hint of confusion on her pretty face. "This. Faced with Jiu Yuana's pure eyes, Lu Yuan was momentarily at a loss for words, but he still mustered up the courage to say, "Nea, apart from you and Cher, I actually have 2 other women." As soon as this was said, the atmosphere immediately fell silent. Lu Yuan's heart was a little uneasy, and he couldn't help but steal glances at Jiu Yuana, wanting to see her expression and whether or not she was angry. However, to his surprise, Jiu Yuana's expression was very calm, and her eyes were also very calm. She was just looking at Lu Yuan in an indifferent manner, but Lu Yuan was unable to bear it. "Nea." Lu Yuan called out softly. Jiu Yuana didn't reply, and only continued to look at him calmly. "Nea, give me some reaction, or you can beat me up." Lu Yuan's eyes darted around as he asked in a probing manner. "Why are you telling me this? You don't have to tell me this." Jiu Yuana's red lips parted slightly as she spoke in an indifferent voice. "I don't want to hide it from you." Lu Yuan sighed softly. "What number am I?" Jiu Yuana asked. "What?" Lu Yuan didn't hear clearly, and asked in response. Jiu Yuana stared straight at Lu Yuan with her purple eyes, and a peculiar sense of pressure appeared in her eyes as she asked, "How many women do I have?" The 4th one." Lu Yuan blinked and said softly, "So I'm the last one." Jiu Yuana murmured to herself as she lowered her head. "Nea." Lu Yuan couldn't help but call out softly when he saw Jiu Yuana lower her head with a hurt expression. "Lu Yuan, how many do you plan to find in the future?" Jiu Yuana raised her head and stared into Lu Yuan's eyes. Lu Yuan wanted to say that he wouldn't look for her anymore, but for some reason, when he thought of a certain beautiful figure, he couldn't bring himself to say it. "Lu Yuan, I am the Silver Dragon King. I am the supreme ruler of all soul beast," Jiu Yuana declared as she stared at Lu Yuan. "I know," Lu Yuan said softly. "I am the half-clone of the dragon god, the supreme being of the dragon race. At my peak, my strength was comparable to a divine king," Jiu Yuana continued. "I know that too," Lu Yuan sighed and said. "But now, I have to share one with you with 3 other women." Jiu Yuana said as her purple eyes were filled with grievance, and there was a faint glimmer in them. Lu Yuan had never seen Jiu Yuana like this before. She was weak, helpless, aggrieved, and even had a hint of indignation. She was the Silver Dragon King, the Silver Dragon King that was comparable to the 5 great divine kings. Her status was extremely noble, but now, she had to share a man with another woman. If it was only Chihiro Snow, she wouldn't mind because she could convince herself that her subordinate, Di Tian, had 2 women, so it was normal for Lu Yuan to have 2. However, she didn't expect that Lu Yuan actually had 4 women, and she was actually the last one. She, the dignified Silver Dragon King, was actually the last one. Did she have to be the youngest? She wanted to cry, but she was the Silver Dragon King, so she couldn't cry casually. Thus, she could only look straight at this man. She wanted to see how this man would answer her. "Nea." Looking at Jiu Yuana's unprecedentedly weak appearance, Lu Yuan's heart ached. He gently caressed Jiu Yuana's cheek, and said with a deep sense of guilt, "I've let you down, I've made you suffer." Looking at Lu Yuan's apologetic eyes, Jiu Yuana remained silent, her purple eyes still staring straight at Lu Yuan. Seeing that Jiu Yuana did not reply, Lu Yuan sighed softly and said, "Nea, if you have anything you want me to do, just say it. Other than letting me leave them, I can promise you anything." Hearing this, Jiu Yuana looked deeply at Lu Yuan. After a moment of silence, she asked, "Really? Really?" Lu Yuan nodded. "All right, then I want you to stay here with me for a year," Jiu Yuana said in a serious voice. "Stay here with you for a year? No, Cher and the others must be worried about me. I have to go back and see them. Furthermore, my Dragon King Palace has only just been built, and there are many things waiting for me to take care of. I can't stay here for too long," Lu Yuan immediately said after hearing Jiu Yuana's words. "But you just said that you would agree no matter what I say. Are you lying to me?" Jiu Yuana said faintly. Hearing this, Lu Yuan's voice faltered. "That's right, this is what I promised Jiu Yuana. Furthermore, Even if you don't agree, I won't let you go. If I don't let you go, will you be able to? Jiu Yuana looked at Lu Yuan with scorching eyes. This, you. Hearing this, Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile bitterly. So Jiu Yuana wants to force me? But to be honest, if she doesn't want me to go, I won't be able to. In this world, no one can take me away from her. What's more, ever since he confirmed his relationship with her, he had spent the least time with her. She was probably the one he spent the least time with. I originally planned to find an opportunity to accompany her after reaching level 50. Now that she has a request, I'll stay here with her for a year as compensation. Looking at Jiu Yuana's beautiful face, Lu Yuan smiled helplessly and said, "All right, I promise you. I'll stay here with you for a year." Really? Jiu Yuana looked at Lu Yuan with a trace of suspicion in her eyes. Really? Lu Yuan nodded and said, "However, there are some things that I have to arrange first. Also, I have to send someone to inform Cher and the others that I'm still alive. Now that I don't know whether I'm alive or dead, they must be burning with anxiety. I have to let them know that I'm fine so that they can relax. As long as you're willing to stay, you can do whatever you want. If you want to send a letter, I can get Di Tian to do it for you. You just have to be responsible for staying here with me peacefully." Jiu Yuana said softly. "You." Lu Yuan pinched Jiu Yuana's soft cheeks and felt a little helpless. Although she usually looked as gentle as water, she was actually very stubborn and opinionated. Once she decided on something, it was very difficult to change her mind. Just like this time, she wanted to force him to stay, so he had no other choice but to stay. Chapter 442. Even if she wanted to force him to stay, what could he do with his abilities? He could only stay obediently. Therefore, even though Jiu Yuana was gentle and obedient, she wasn't without a temper. The key was that he had to go along with her whenever she threw a tantrum. Just like this time. He had no choice. She was stronger than he was. He had to be stronger than her if he wanted to conquer a woman. Just like with Chihiro Snow, he had to conquer her with his strength before she would slowly become obedient. Chihiro Snow's personality had changed a lot under Lu Yuan's guidance, and he had become a lot more obedient. However, it would be a little difficult to conquer Jiu Yuana. Lu Yuan's eyes blinked slightly as thoughts ran through his mind. "Lu Yuan, what are you thinking about?" Jiu Yuana's voice sounded. "Nothing." Lu Yuan gently caressed Jiu Yuana's long silver hair. The smooth strands of hair slipped through the gaps between his fingers, and they felt very good to the touch. "If you need anything, you can instruct Di Tian. Since you're my man, all the soul beasts in the Great Stardo Forest are your subordinates." Jiu Yuana said gently. Lu Yuan's hand paused when he heard this, and he was slightly moved in his heart. Jiu Yuana's casual words had really touched the soft spot in his heart, and he couldn't help but reveal a trace of a warm smile. However, was he living off a woman? Lu Yuan had a weird look in his eyes. He didn't expect there to be a day when he was living off a woman. He had no choice. This girlfriend of his was too powerful. However, Lu Yuan didn't accept Jiu Yuana's good intentions. He had his own thoughts. There's no need. I have my own messenger. Although Di Tian is strong, he's still a soul beast. Furthermore, I have a very strong organization in the human world. Even if Di Tian is strong and can hide his aura, he might not be able to hide it from everyone. Once his identity is exposed, it won't be good if a fight breaks out. It was very likely that Chihiro Snow was in the Martial Soul Palace right now. Hulena and Zhu Zhuqing were worried about him, and might have gone to the Martial Soul Palace to ask about the situation. The Martial Soul Palace didn't only have Sendryu, but also Bibidon. They were all at their limits. Even if Di Tian could hide it from others, he couldn't hide it from them. Di Tian wasn't like Wang Qiu'er, who had the power of destiny. That was why no one below the god rank. Di Tian's identity was exposed. Once his identity was revealed, it tus. Once a fight broke out, it would be earth-shattering. Lu Yuan wasn't worried that something would happen to Di Tian. Not only was he a soul beast, but he also had the dragon god's claw. Once he used it, he was comparable to a demigod. He was so strong that he could dominate the world. Lu Yuan was worried that he would hurt the people in the martial soul palace. If that happened, the losses wouldn't be worth it. You have a messenger. Jiu Yuana was puzzled as she looked at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan was all alone now. Even Long Xiaoyaro wasn't by his side. How could he have a messenger? Of course. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. Then where is the person who sent you the message? Why haven't I discovered him? Jiu Yuana asked curiously. Well. Lu Yuan giggled and said, I'll perform a magic trick for you. Do you want to see it? What magic trick? Jiu Yuana was a little puzzled as she looked at Lu Yuan. Making a living person appear. Lu Yuan laughed as he replied. Making a living person appear. Jiu Yuana looked at Lu Yuan. Her eyes were filled with confusion. What did he mean? Hihi, you'll know in a while. Seeing Jiu Yuana's puzzled look, Lu Yuan pinched Jiu Yuana's nose and smiled. How? Are we going to do it here? Jiu Yuana asked. Of course we're going to do it outside. This is our territory. If there's nothing important, we can't let anyone else in. Oh, yes, don't let Di Tian come in so casually in the future. That old man is very bad. Lu Yuan's heart was filled with resentment when he recalled how Di Tian had caught him twice like a chick and brought him here. The only 2 times he had lost face in his life were at the hands of Di Tian. He had to take revenge for this. When I become a titled Douluo, I'll pin Di Tian to the ground and beat him up. When that happens, don't stop me, Lu Yuan said to Jiu Yuana. Yes, don't worry. I won't stop you. Just beat him up. It's all right, as long as you don't kill him. Jiu Yuana's voice was very gentle. She had completely forgotten who had sent Di Tian. Di Tian was speechless in the face of such a master. He had no choice. Lu Yuan wanted to vent his anger, but he couldn't find Jiu Yuana. After all, she was his woman. Therefore, he could only find Di Tian. In Jiu Yuana's eyes, Di Tian was only her subordinate, while Lu Yuan was her man. There was no need to hesitate about who was more important. If Lu Yuan wanted to vent his anger, then she would let him. After all, Di Tian's skin was thick, and he couldn't be hurt. Once Lu Yuan vented his anger, their relationship would naturally improve. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. As for Di Tian, Jiu Yuana could only apologize. Wasn't her subordinate supposed to be a scapegoat? Just like how Lu Yuan used Long Xiaoyaro to fool Chihiro Snow, Jiu Yuana used Di Tian to vent her anger for Lu Yuan. This man and woman were indeed a couple. Their way of doing things was very similar. Furthermore, the 2 of them had a tacit understanding to forget who was the real culprit. Let's go, I'll bring you out to take a look. Lu Yuan smiled and held Jiu Yuana's hand as they walked forward. Okay. Jiu Yuana nodded. She also wanted to know how Lu Yuan could create a living person. Did he really create a person out of thin air like he said? This seemed a little inconceivable. Creating something out of nothing, what kind of existence would be able to do such a thing? A godly king probably couldn't. Not to mention an ordinary godly king, even the dragon god, who was at the peak of the godly king stage, didn't have such an ability. If the dragon god wanted to create something, he had to have something to rely on. Creating a person out of thin air was something that even a god couldn't do. Perhaps only an existence that far surpassed the godly king stage could do that. However, with Lu Yuan's current abilities, Jiu Yuana had her doubts, but she didn't doubt him. She believed in Lu Yuan. Since Lu Yuan said that he could create a living person out of thin air, he definitely could. Furthermore, Lu Yuan had a mysterious aura that couldn't be described with words. Others might not be able to do it, but if it was Lu Yuan, he might really be able to do it. Therefore, Jiu Yuana was very expectant. Suddenly, Lu Yuan stopped in his tracks. What's wrong, Lu Yuan? Jiu Yuana looked at Lu Yuan doubtfully. It's too monotonous here. Furthermore, there's no bed. It's hard to sleep. I'm going to stay here for a year. When I come down later, I'll have to build a bed. Lu Yuan smiled as he said. Chapter 443. Set up a bed. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Jiu Yuana's pretty face blushed slightly. What does Lu Yuan want to do by setting up a bed? Could it be? Thinking of this, Jiu Yuana felt a little shy in her heart. If he wants to, it's not impossible. Moreover, the bloodline of the dragon clan does need to be passed down. Jiu Yuana's little head was spinning non-stop. "Na? What are you thinking about?" Lu Yuan asked with some confusion. "No, nothing." Hearing Lu Yuan's voice, Jiu Yuana immediately came back to her senses, and hurriedly said with a bright red face. "Na, why are you so nervous?" Lu Yuan was a little puzzled, but when he saw Jiu Yuana's blushing cheeks, he suddenly understood. He knew that this girl must have misunderstood. The heavens took pity on him. At first, he proposed this idea because it was difficult to sleep without a bed. He couldn't meditate every day. After all, a year was quite a long time. But now, Jiu Yuana's behavior really aroused his strange thoughts. "Na, are you misunderstood?" Lu Yuan slowly moved his head in front of Jiu Yuana, and asked with a light smile. I'm not." Jiu Yuana's eyes were a little evasive, and she stammered. "Is that so?" Lu Yuan took Jiu Yuana into his arms. His cheeks and Jiu Yuana's cheeks were so close that they could hear each other's breaths. Seeing Jiu Yuana's somewhat panicked eyes and her slightly blushing cheeks, Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile, and asked, "Na, if I really wanted to, would you refuse?" Hearing this, Jiu Yuana's heart was stunned, and she looked at Lu Yuan with some resentment. Who asked such a question? If she said that she would refuse, wouldn't she hurt this guy in front of her? But if she said that she wouldn't refuse, it would be a little too unreserved. "Okay, I'm just teasing you." Seeing Jiu Yuana's awkward expression, Lu Yuan gently pecked Jiu Yuana's red lips and said with a smile. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Jiu Yuana's heart relaxed a lot, but she still looked at Lu Yuan reproachfully. This guy actually used this kind of thing to tease her. Looking at Jiu Yuana's reproachful eyes, Lu Yuan was somewhat amused. Since he fell in love with Jiu Yuana really became more and more popular. Her behavior was more and more like a human girl. She would get angry, she would get jealous, and sometimes she would look at him with resentment. "Na, how are your injuries now?" Lu Yuan looked at Jiu Yuana with a trace of concern in his eyes. "I'm almost healed. As for the remaining injuries, it will take at most half a year for me to fully recover." "Lu Yuan, the esoteric character you gave me is really effective," Jiu Yuana said with a smile. "Of course, the esoteric character is one of the 9 esoteric characters. Once you master it, you can be reborn from a drop of blood. Healing your injuries is just a small matter," Lu Yuan said with a light smile. "One of the 9 esoteric characters?" Could it be that there are 8 more esoteric characters on the same level as the esoteric character? Jiu Yuana's eyes widened, revealing her beautiful amethyst eyes. Yes, the esoteric character is one of the 9 esoteric characters. The complete 9 esoteric characters is Lin, Bing, Do, Zhe, Array, Advance. Every one of them has a very mysterious power, and every one of them is not inferior to the esoteric character. Seeing Jiu Yuana's shocked expression, Lu Yuan said with a smile. "Every one of them is not inferior to the esoteric character." Jiu Yuana looked at Lu Yuan with some shock, and asked softly, "Then you want to ask me if there are any other esoteric characters?" Before Jiu Yuana finished speaking, she was interrupted by Lu Yuan. "Yes." Hearing this, Jiu Yuana nodded her head. "I only have one esoteric character at the moment, but maybe in the future, I will have the opportunity to obtain others. At that time, I will teach them to you. Gently stroking Jiu Yuana's silver hair, Lu Yuan said. Yes. Jiu Yuana slightly nodded her head, and her amethyst eyes stared straight at Lu Yuan. What is it, Na? Lu Yuan asked. Lu Yuan, you are so good to me. Jiu Yuana softly said, and her little head buried in Lu Yuan's chest. Good to you? Lu Yuan slightly wryly smiled, and gently patted Jiu Yuana's shoulder. This is what I owe you. Outside the underground portal, next to the Lake of Life. Lu Yuan, let's do it here, there is no one here. Jiu Yuana said. Okay. Lu Yuan nodded his head, and said, everything that is about to happen may be very unimaginable. This involves my greatest secret, so you must keep it a secret. Don't tell anyone else. Got it. Jiu Yuana softly said. Lu Yuan's background had always been extraordinary, especially that first streak of purple light. It was extremely noble, and its aura far surpassed that of a god king. Jiu Yuana couldn't help but tremble. Sometimes, Jiu Yuana even suspected that Lu Yuan wasn't from the Douluo universe, and that he came from somewhere else. However, she didn't want to pursue this matter. She only knew that no matter how many secrets Lu Yuan had, he was still her man, and stood on the same side as her. As far as she was concerned, knowing this was enough. Yes, system, use 2 titled Douluo draw cards. Lu Yuan secretly contacted the system. Yes, titled Douluo draw cards are being used. The system's cold voice sounded. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the Bright Phoenix Douluo Yang Xiaozhe. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the Phoenix Douluo Ma Xiaodao. Yang Xiaozhe, Ma Xiaodao? Lu Yuan's mouth twitched. System, are you joking with me? My organization is called the Dragon King Palace, and you've given me 2 phoenixes. What's the meaning of this? The system was speechless. Forget it, it's fine if I get Yang Xiaozhe. Even if I can't get Senior Yi Shishure, I've sent her son over. It's not bad to send a son to Elder Long. Furthermore, Yang Xiaozhe's martial soul is the Radiant Phoenix, and he's a rank 97 Transcendent Douluo. He's not bad. Lu Yuan thought to himself. But why did you draw Ma Xiaodao? Do you think I'm not in a mess? Lu Yuan's mouth twitched. It was still fine if he had drawn a male subordinate, but it was very troublesome to draw a female subordinate, especially in a situation like this. He still didn't know how to tell Chihiro Snow and the rest about Jiu Yuana. If he had Ma Xiaodao as his subordinate, he was afraid that they would think too much. But aside from this, Ma Xiaotao's strength was also very strong. The system had drawn her after she became a titled Douluo. She was 29 years old now, and she was a rank 95 Transcendent Douluo. Furthermore, she had an ultimate fire-type Fire Phoenix martial soul. She was very strong. In particular, her explosive strength was very terrifying. Even though Yang Xiaozhe was 2 ranks higher than her, he might not be able to defeat her. At least, the Blood Emperor that they had met earlier was definitely not Ma Xiaotao's match, even though he was rank 96. In the current Douluo continent, Ma Xiaotao's talent could be considered top-notch. Chapter 444. But how do I explain summoning 2 phoenixes? They don't have a martial soul from the Dragon Clan, so Elder Long's words don't make sense. Lu Yuan muttered to himself. That's right, Elder Long. Lu Yuan suddenly had an idea. Yang Xiaozhe was Elder Long's son, and Ma Xiaodao was Yang Xiaozhe's disciple. This would be easy to arrange. Since Elder Long is loyal to me, his son and his disciple should also be loyal to me. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with this. I'm really smart. Lu Yuan was elated. He finally found a reason to convince Chihiro Snow and the others. Elder Long was still useful. Using him as a scapegoat never failed. He was different from Jiu Yuana. Jiu Yuana knew him very well. She might look calm and collected on the surface, but she might have already guessed his identity. Jiu Yuana definitely knew that he didn't belong to this world. Jiu Yuana didn't know about the existence of the system, but she knew that there was something special about him. After all, didn't she come into contact with him at the beginning because of this special thing about him? It was only because of the attraction between their bloodlines that she gradually fell in love with him. He was sure that she wanted to use him at the beginning and borrow his strength to tie him to the Soul Beast's war chariot. Now, her feelings for him shouldn't be inferior to her feelings for the Soul Beast. However, Jiu Yuana didn't have to hide it from him. Chihiro Snow and the others still had to hide it. This didn't mean that Lu Yuan loved Jiu Yuana more. It was just that his secrets were too frightening. There wasn't any benefit to knowing too much about them. Jiu Yuana knew a lot from the beginning. Otherwise, Lu Yuan would also hide it from her. Hiding it from them would be better for their relationship. Come out, Lu Yuan said directly after thinking for a while. As soon as he said that, two figures suddenly appeared in the empty air. A man and a woman. The man was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 50s. He wore a white robe, and there was a strong aura of light around him. Even though there were some wrinkles on his face, one could tell that he was quite handsome. After all, Elder Long was very handsome, and Yi Shishire was a beauty. It was normal for Yang Xiaozhe to have such looks. If Yang Xiaozhe was rather handsome, then Ma Xiaodao, who was beside him, was an unmistakable beauty. She had a pretty oval face, fair skin, and a pair of big black eyes that were very quick-witted. There was a heroic spirit between her brows, which made her look very valiant and formidable. What was even more praiseworthy was her voluptuous and sexy figure. Paired with her fiery red clothes, she really had a kind of shocking temptation. Perhaps the phrase passionate like fire was used to describe women like her. Greetings, Master. Yang Xiaozhe bowed respectfully to Lu Yuan the moment he appeared. Ma Xiaodao, on the other hand, looked at Lu Yuan with a strange look in her eyes. Xiaodao, why aren't you bowing to Master? Yang Xiaozhe's voice carried a hint of urgency. Ma Xiaodao ignored Yang Xiaozhe. Instead, she sized up Lu Yuan and smiled as she asked, "Are you Master's younger brother?" Xiaodao, what are you talking about? Yang Xiaozhe's tone became stern. Why aren't you apologizing to Master? After hearing Yang Xiaozhe's words, Ma Xiaodao stuck out her tongue. Even though she was naturally bold and had a carefree personality, Yang Xiaozhe was still her teacher. Ma Xiaodao was a little scared when he was really stern. Master, Xiaodao has been rude. Ma Xiaodao imitated Yang Xiaozhe and bowed. Master, please forgive Xiaodao for being disrespectful. I'm willing to accept Master's punishment on behalf of Xiaodao, Yang Xiaozhe said respectfully. Elder Yang. Uncle Yang, you're too polite. You don't have to pay attention to such formalities. Lu Yuan waved his hand and said nonchalantly. He understood Ma Xiaotao's actions very well. That was because the system might change some of the memories of the people who were selected. However, their personalities wouldn't change. For example, Long Xiaoyao's arrogance was still the same even after he was selected. Other than his master, Lu Yuan, there were not many people in this world that he would pay attention to. Yang Xiaozhe was someone who paid attention to rules. Perhaps it was because he had been a dean for a long time that he valued these things. Thus, he was extremely respectful when he faced Lu Yuan. As for Ma Xiaodao, she was a carefree and outgoing person. She didn't like to be restrained. It was understandable that she called him Master's younger brother. What they called him wasn't important. What was important was that they were all summoned by the system. They were 100% loyal to him. That was enough. He wasn't someone who was arrogant. Everyone had to kowtow to him when they saw him. He was quite easy to get along with. Of course, the prerequisite was that they didn't provoke him. See, I knew that Master's younger brother wouldn't care about these things. Teacher, you're too old-fashioned. Ma Xiaodao laughed when she heard Lu Yuan's words. Xiaodao. Yang Xiaozhe scolded unhappily. Ah, Uncle Yang, you don't have to be like this. Since Sister Xiaodao likes to call me that, let her call me that. It's good to have another sister. I'll call you Uncle Yang in the future. Call her Sister Xiaodao. You can't go against it. This is an order. Lu Yuan smiled and said. Yang Shaozhe could only nod his head when he heard Lu Yuan's words. After all, he couldn't disobey his master's orders. Haha, master's younger brother is so nice. Sister Xiaodao loves you. Ma Xiaodao smiled when she heard Lu Yuan's words. She even winked at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan's body stiffened when he saw this. He almost vomited. Sister Xiaodao, you should be more normal. Acting like a little girl doesn't suit you. It looks weird, Lu Yuan said helplessly. If an enchanting beauty like Hu Liana winked at him, then it would definitely be very charming and extremely tempting. However, Ma Xiaodao was as carefree as a boy. When she did such an action, it was really a little disgusting. The contrast was too big. Even Lu Yuan felt like he couldn't cover her. Ma Xiaodao frowned when she heard this. She looked at Lu Yuan as if she had suffered a blow. She looked at him with a wronged expression. However, Lu Yuan chose to ignore it. He turned to Yang Shaozhe and said, Uncle Yang, there's something I need you to do. Please tell me, Master. I'll do my best. Yang Shaozhe said. It's like this. I'm going to stay in the Great Star Do Forest for a year. I don't have time to return to the Martial Soul Palace. Help me deliver 3 letters. Send 2 back to the Martial Soul Palace, 1 to the current Pope, Bibidon, and 1 to the previous Pope's daughter, Chihiro Snow. After you're done delivering the letters, head to the Dragon King Hall in Heaven Do Imperial City. Deliver the 3rd letter to the Poison Douluo Dugu Bo. Chapter 445. I can't go back for a year. I can't interfere with the affairs of the Dragon King Hall. However, it wasn't easy for me to establish it. I can't let it continue to be messy. You've been a dean before, so you have a lot of experience in management. You can take over the affairs of the Dragon King Hall for a year. After all, Elder Dugu doesn't seem like someone who can manage things. I'll go back after a year. Oh, yes. Elder Long isn't in the Dragon King Hall now. He's in the Martial Soul Palace. You can meet him and his father when you go back. I think you should know about your background, right? Lu Yuan asked. Yang Shaozhe nodded when he heard this. Ever since he was summoned, he already knew that Long Xiaoyaro was his biological father. It's good that you know. Elder Long is all alone now. He's quite lonely. You can talk to him more when you're free. It's not easy for him. He's had a tough life. You have to take good care of him. Lu Yuan said earnestly. Yes, Master. Yang Shaozhe replied. Master, do you have any other instructions? Yang Shaozhe asked. Nope. Lu Yuan said, wait for a while. I'll finish writing the letter and hand it to you. You can bring it back. Remember, every letter has to be personally handed to everyone. Don't give it to the wrong person. Yes, Master. Yang Shaozhe replied. Wait for a while. I'll write the letter now. Lu Yuan said. He looked at Jiu Yuana and said, use the earth element to form a stone platform. It just needs to be 1 meter tall. Oh. Jiu Yuana nodded blankly when she heard this. She waved her hand, and the earth element gathered to form a rectangular stone platform that was 1 meter tall and 2 meters long. A faint smile suddenly appeared on Lu Yuan's face as he looked at the smooth stone platform. He then whispered into Jiu Yuana's ear, I've discovered that we don't have to build a bed anymore. You can materialize a bed of any size with a wave of your hand. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Jiu Yuana's pretty face blushed. Every time Lu Yuan talked about the bed, she would easily think in that direction. Immediately, she couldn't help but stare at Lu Yuan reproachfully. Seeing this, Lu Yuan laughed. With a gentle wave of his right hand, paper, pen, and envelopes appeared on the stone platform. He usually kept these things in his astral ring when he had nothing to do, but there really was a day where he had a use for them. Spreading out the paper, Lu Yuan ground the ink and picked up the brush to write. Lu Yuan's calligraphy was excellent. It was flamboyant and full of vigor. Every word was strong and powerful. It was majestic and imposing. Lu Yuan finished writing letters for everyone and handed them to Yang Shaozhe. Lu Yuan then took out the Angel Command Medallion and handed it over. This is the Angel Command Medallion. Once you see it, share and the others will believe that you're one of my people. Only then will you be able to enter the martial soul palace. This Angel Command Medallion has a lot of power. Take care of it and don't lose it. Yes, my lord. Yang Shaozhe carefully put away the 3 letters and the Angel Command Medallion before placing them into his personal soul tool. If there's nothing else, you can set off now. After you leave the Great Douluo Forest, you can buy a map. The route to the Martial Soul Palace is clear and delicate. You don't have to be afraid of going the wrong way. Lu Yuan said. Yes, my lord. Yang Shaozhe acknowledged. He then said to Ma Xiaodao, Xiaodao, you'll be in charge of my lord's safety. You must protect him well. Yes, teacher. Ma Xiaodao giggled. She looked at Lu Yuan and said, little brother, I'll take care of you from now on. Lu Yuan's mouth twitched when he heard this. Take care of me? I'm afraid I'll have to take care of you. You don't even know how to cook. However, he didn't say these words out loud. He didn't want to hurt Ma Xiaotao's reputation. After all, even if she was carefree, she was still a girl. Yang Shaozhe nodded and said, then I'll take my leave. Just as Yang Shaozhe was about to leave, Jiyu Yuana suddenly said, wait. What's wrong, Na? Lu Yuan was a little confused as he looked at Jiyu Yuana. Faced with Lu Yuan's confused gaze, Jiyu Yuana gently said, this is the core region of the Great Douluo Forest. There are many savage beasts here. If he goes out like this, he'll definitely meet Di Tian or the Bear Lord. Di Tian and the others don't know him. If they fight, with his strength, the consequences. Jiyu Yuana didn't finish her sentence, but Lu Yuan understood what she meant. Yang Shaozhe wasn't long Xiaoyao. He couldn't move freely in the Great Douluo Forest. Yang Shaozhe was only rank 97. It was fine if he met other people, but if he met Di Tian and the Bear Lord, and they didn't know each other, he could very well die if they fought. Oh right, I forgot about that. Forget it, I'm going to talk to the Sky Azure Bull Python and the others about the Titan Giant Ape anyway. I'll go with Uncle Yang and let Di Tian get a good look at it. It'll be bad if they don't recognize each other and end up fighting, Lu Yuan said. Yes. That's how it should be. Jiyu Yuana nodded and said. Then let's go. Lu Yuan held Jiyu Yuana's hand and walked in front with Yang Shaozhe. Yang Shaozhe and Ma Xiaodao followed behind them. Yang Shaozhe said softly, as if he wanted Ma Xiaodao to take good care of Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan listened for a while before he withdrew his thoughts. Lu Yuan looked at Jiyu Yuana beside him and tilted his head slightly. He asked, Na, was my transformation spectacular? Spectacular. Jiyu Yuana's eyes were filled with a trace of astonishment. She said, when the 2 of them appeared, I didn't feel any fluctuations in the space. It was as if they really appeared out of thin air. How did you do it? Jiyu Yuana looked at Lu Yuan curiously as she said that. Well, the things involved are very complicated, so I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that even if I summon them, there's a limit. I can't summon them at any time. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had to come all the way here to save me, Lu Yuan said. Oh. Jiyu Yuana nodded when she heard that. It was normal for there to be a limit to this kind of thing. If he could really summon people out of thin air without any restraint, that would be terrifying. However, even if there was a limit, Lu Yuan really did summon 2 people out of thin air today. This made Jiyu Yuana feel a little shocked. This was because she couldn't understand this kind of method. However, when she saw that Lu Yuan didn't seem to want to explain, she didn't ask. She wasn't the kind of person who wanted to get to the bottom of things. She was different from Chihiro Snow. Jiyu Yuana was very smart and knew how to give in. She wouldn't make things difficult for Lu Yuan. Of course, Chihiro Snow was much better now. His personality had changed quite a bit. Perhaps when Lu Yuan returned to the Martial Soul Palace, Chihiro Snow would give him a surprise. Perhaps it would be a brand new Chihiro Snow. Chapter 446. Everyone walked slowly, and they soon arrived at Di Tian's territory. Di Tian, Bai Ji, the Sky Azure Bull Python, and Xiao Wu were all here. As for the Titan giant ape's corpse, it had already disappeared. The Sky Azure Bull Python and the others must have buried it. When they saw Lu Yuan and Jiu Yuana arrive, all the soul beasts turned to look at them. When they saw Yang Xiaozhe and Ma Xiaodao behind Lu Yuan and Jiu Yuana, all the soul beasts were a little surprised. Didn't Lu Yuan and Jiu Yuana go in alone? How come there were two more people suddenly? Di Tian. Jiu Yuana's voice sounded. Master. Di Tian bowed in response. Jiu Yuana pointed at Yang Xiaozhe and said, "Send him out. Also, tell the soul beasts in the Great Star Do Forest not to attack him." "Yes, Master," Di Tian replied. "Uncle Yang, you can go out with Di Tian." Lu Yuan said plainly. "Yes, Master." Yang Xiaozhe nodded and replied. When he heard Lu Yuan's words, Di Tian was a little surprised. So this person is also Lu Yuan's subordinate. Since that's the case, the human woman behind him should also be this kid's subordinate, right? This kid's subordinates aren't weak. Follow me. Di Tian retracted the surprise in his eyes and nodded at Yang Xiaozhe. Di Tian led the way, and Yang Xiaozhe followed closely behind. Lu Yuan withdrew his gaze and looked at the Sky Azure Bull Python and Xiao Wu not far away. When he met their concerned gazes, he smiled and said, "Don't worry, the Titan giant ape is fine. It's in my sea of consciousness right now." Sea of consciousness? Xiao Wu was a little confused. Shouldn't a soul beast's spirit be hidden in a soul ring? Why would it be in his sea of consciousness? Yes. Wait for me, I'll go in and take a look. Lu Yuan closed his eyes as he spoke, and his spiritual power entered his sea of consciousness. Under the white sky, there was a blue-gold ocean. What was different from the past was that there was only a lone island on the blue-gold ocean, but now there was an additional beach. After the sacrifice of the Titan giant ape, Lu Yuan had obtained a 100,000-year soul ring and become a soul king. His spiritual power had also increased by quite a bit, and his sea of consciousness had also changed slightly. The area had expanded a lot, more than twice its original size. This meant that Lu Yuan's spiritual power had improved greatly. The original lone island was still in the core area of the entire sea of consciousness, and the god-slaying spear was stuck right above it. In the vast white sky, the clear air divine seed emitted a white light. A red sun hung in the sky, emitting light and heat. This red sun was the power of the Polychoria. Ever since his Polychoria had advanced to the second step and obtained the immeasurable light skill, the power of his Polychoria had begun to manifest in his sea of knowledge. The spirit of the golden dragon was still swimming on the surface of the sea, and the white ball of the 10,000-year man-faced demon spider's soulbone was still floating on the surface of the sea. Lu Yuan's gaze swept around, and he immediately saw the Titan giant ape on the beach. It was leaning against a coconut tree, scratching its head and looking at the world around it with a blank expression. Lu Yuan's figure moved slightly, and he walked directly onto the golden beach. "Titan giant ape," Lu Yuan said softly. Hearing this, the Titan giant ape turned its head and saw Lu Yuan walking over. Immediately, a trace of excitement flashed across its eyes. It immediately moved its legs and roared loudly. Its arms hammered its chest, and there was a trace of surprise in its roar. All right, stop roaring." Seeing the Titan giant ape's excited appearance, Lu Yuan waved his hand and said, "Now that your soul has been modified by the clear air divine seed, you should be able to speak freely, right?" "Yes, my lord." The Titan giant ape's rough voice sounded. "Then you should talk more in the future. Don't roar all the time." "I don't understand what you're saying," Lu Yuan said. "Yes, my lord, I understand." The Titan giant ape scratched its head with a silly look on its face. Then come with me now. The Sky Azure Ball Python and Xiao Wu are waiting to see you. With the protection of the clear air divine seed, you can leave your body for a short period of time to communicate with them. Looking at the degree of solidification of the Titan giant ape's soul and sensing the aura of the clear Qi God power on its body, Lu Yuan knew that it must have been cleansed by the power of the clear Qi God seed the moment it entered. With the protection of the clear air divine seed, it would be fine as long as it didn't leave his body for more than 2 hours a day. This was a good opportunity for it to meet the Sky Azure Ball Python and Xiao Wu so that they wouldn't have to constantly worry about the Titan giant ape. Really, my lord? After hearing Lu Yuan's words, the Titan giant ape's eyes were filled with ecstasy. Really? Come with me, and don't resist. Lu Yuan's spiritual power rippled as he spoke, and he swept the Titan giant ape's soul out of his sea of consciousness. In the outside world, Lu Yuan abruptly opened his eyes, and his polychoria flashed. Dazzling white light enveloped the Titan giant ape, and he appeared before Xiao Wu and the Sky Azure Ball Python. Ming. The Sky Azure Ball Python and Xiao Wu's voices rang out in unison. The Titan giant ape was also very happy to see the two of them, and it immediately called out, "Big brother, big sister Xiao Wu. Now that the Titan giant ape has come out, you two can talk among yourselves." The Titan giant ape can leave my body for no more than 2 hours a day, and I'll be staying in the Great Star Do Forest for an entire year, so you two will have plenty of opportunities to meet, Lu Yuan said. Yes, my lord, the Sky Azure Ball Python replied. All right, then you two can talk here. Let's talk over there, Lu Yuan said to Jiu Yuana. All right. Jiu Yuana nodded before following Lu Yuan to the side. Lu Yuan, how can the Titan giant ape's soul be so condensed? This isn't something that a 100,000-year-old soul beast should possess. A hint of confusion appeared in Jiu Yuana's eyes as she looked at Lu Yuan. That's because I have a divine seed in my sea of consciousness. The Titan giant ape's soul has been modified by the divine seed's power, and it has become a lot more condensed. Lu Yuan didn't hide anything from Jiu Yuana. After all, Jiu Yuana was now one of his own. Divine seed. Oh, that's the strange divine power I sensed from your body. What kind of divine seed is that? Jiu Yuana asked with a perplexed look in her eyes. What divine seed? A faint smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face as he replied, This is the clear air divine seed, and it contains the power of laws. If I can attain godhood from this divine seed, then I'll become a new god of laws. When that time comes, I won't even have to fear the 5 godly monarchs. God of laws. A hint of surprise appeared in Jiu Yuana's voice. That's right. The god of laws is an existence that transcends even the dragon god. It's the most paramount being in this universe, and it controls all things, Lu Yuan replied in an indifferent voice. Chapter 447. The God of Laws has the power to control all laws. Jiu Yuana's eyes lit up with elation as she stared intently at Lu Yuan with her purple eyes. What's wrong, Nea? Why are you looking at me like that? Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile at the sight of Jiu Yuana's unwavering gaze. Lu Yuan, I knew I was right. You really are the hope of our soul beast race. A serious look appeared in Jiu Yuana's purple eyes. This was the power of laws, a god of laws that reigned above the dragon god. Only such a being could defeat the 5 godly monarchs and lead the soul beast race to a new height. Otherwise, even if she had fused with the golden dragon king to become the dragon god again, there was no way that she would have been able to defeat the 5 godly monarchs. Otherwise, the dragon god wouldn't have been defeated. In the end, she hadn't placed her bet on the wrong person. It was no wonder that this man had always been so confident, because he had always been confident. After becoming a god, he had the confidence to be fearless. It was no wonder that he only hesitated slightly when he agreed to help her. Now that she thought about it, perhaps he was afraid of trouble and didn't want to get involved in it. However, he still chose to share the burden with her. Jiu Yuana had interacted with Lu Yuan for quite some time, so she had a better understanding of his personality. Lu Yuan was someone who was afraid of trouble. If it weren't for her and Wang Qiu'er, it wouldn't have been so easy for Lu Yuan to side with the soul beasts. However, he had already agreed to help her, so the soul beast race's future shouldn't be too far away. A faint smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face upon hearing Jiu Yuana's words. If it weren't for the fact that he had a certain level of confidence, he wouldn't have accepted such a heavy responsibility so easily. After all, he was someone who never did things that he wasn't confident in. Lu Yuan smiled at the sight of Jiu Yuana's flawless features. He gently stroked Jiu Yuana's smooth cheek with a hint of affection in his eyes. A faint blush appeared on Jiu Yuana's face, but she didn't stop him. Instead, there was a hint of joy in her heart. That's right, where's Qiu'er? Why don't I see her? Lu Yuan suddenly thought of something, and his hand that was caressing Jiu Yuana's face paused. Qiu'er. She should have gone out to play. That little fellow is very active. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Jiu Yuana was slightly stunned, then quickly reacted and said softly, "That's true. It's like a little tyrant in the great Douluo forest. No soul beast dares to provoke it." Lu Yuan laughed softly. Wang Qiu'er was the emperor beast, the three-eyed golden lion. She carried the destiny of the entire great Douluo forest with her. If she wanted to kill a soul beast, that soul beast had no choice but to flee. The dignity of the emperor beast was not to be offended. "You want to see it?" Jiu Yuana asked softly. I really want to see this little one. She's my only sister, Lu Yuan said with a smile. "All right, I'll send someone to look for it." Jiu Yuana laughed softly. After that, she turned her gaze, and her red lips parted slightly. Her voice carried a tinge of dignity. "Bai Ji. Master." After hearing Jiu Yuana's voice, Bai Ji hurriedly walked forward. "Send someone to look for the emperor beast. Tell them that its brother wants to see it." Jiu Yuana said. "Yes, master. I'll do it right away." Bai Ji nodded, then immediately turned and left. As he looked at Jiu Yuana, who was exuding an indescribable dignity, Lu Yuan couldn't help but nod. This was Jiu Yuana's true appearance. High and mighty, unparalleled. This was the true Silver Dragon King, Jiu Yuana. In front of him, she wasn't the Silver Dragon King. She was only his Na. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Jiu Yuana turned her head and looked at Lu Yuan's slightly strange eyes. She couldn't help but ask. "It's nothing. I just think that our Na is really dignified. It's really likable." Lu Yuan chuckled and said. Hearing this, Jiu Yuana glanced at him indifferently, but the smile on her face couldn't be stopped. "Done." Looking at Xiao Wu standing in front of him, Lu Yuan asked faintly. "Yes, done." Xiao Wu nodded charmingly. She looked at Jiu Yuana with a slightly evasive gaze. She must still be a little afraid in her heart. "You don't have to be afraid of Na. She won't eat you." Looking at Xiao Wu's timid look, Lu Yuan was a little amused. Once upon a time, this little rabbit was quite lawless. He didn't expect her to be so afraid of Jiu Yuana. However, thinking about it from another perspective, Jiu Yuana was the high and mighty Silver Dragon King, the supreme ruler of all soul beasts. Aside from herself, she always had an indescribable sense of dignity around her. Coupled with the natural suppression of her bloodline, it was normal for Xiao Wu to be afraid of her. However, what Lu Yuan didn't know was that Xiao Wu was afraid of Jiu Yuana because Jiu Yuana had almost killed Xiao Wu for Lu Yuan. This was the main reason why Xiao Wu was afraid of Jiu Yuana. "Oh." Hearing Lu Yuan's voice, Xiao Wu gave an affirmative response. However, there was still a hint of fear in her eyes toward Jiu Yuana. "Since you've come to an agreement, then let the Titan giant ape come back. It's not good for its soul to stay outside for too long," Lu Yuan said. Yes. Xiao Wu nodded and said to the Titan giant ape, "Ming, come back." Hearing Xiao Wu's call, the Titan giant ape scratched its head. Then, its body suddenly shrank, and it disappeared into Lu Yuan's glabella as a streak of light. Lu Yuan rubbed his glabella and looked at Xiao Wu in front of him. Since you've come to an agreement with the Titan giant ape, then you should have a good understanding of its current situation. You don't have to worry that I'll mistreat it if it follows me. I can promise you that if I become a god in the future, I'll give it a godly position. I won't mistreat anyone who follows me. Lu Yuan's voice wasn't very loud, but it was extremely serious and resolute. Everyone present couldn't help but nod in approval. Ma Xiaodao looked at Lu Yuan with a strange light in her eyes. Only a master like this was worthy of being followed. All right, that's all I have to say. Let's call it a day. Lu Yuan stood up and clapped his hands. He looked at Xiao Wu and rubbed her head with a smile. During this year, I'll be bringing the Titan giant ape to meet you frequently. You and the Sky Azure Bull Python don't have to worry. I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave with Na. Yes, I know. Xiao Wu nodded, looking very obedient. After learning about Lu Yuan's identity, Xiao Wu was now abnormally obedient in front of him. She didn't dare to throw a tantrum for no reason. After all, Lu Yuan was a noble golden dragon in human form. As a soft bone rabbit, Xiao Wu had an instinctive sense of reverence toward such a high-level dragon bloodline. Chapter 448. Lu Yuan was amused as he looked at Xiao Wu, who was acting like an obedient rabbit. It seemed like this lively rabbit had been frightened quite a bit. She was actually so obedient now. This was really interesting. After patting Xiao Wu on the head, Lu Yuan took Jiu Yuana's hand and left. Yes, he had to go back and set up his bed. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. Brother. A crisp voice rang out. Lu Yuan was originally sitting cross-legged, but he was suddenly pushed to the ground. A beautiful soul beast that looked like a lion was on top of him. She stuck out her tongue and gently licked Lu Yuan's cheek. Choa, you're messing around again. Lu Yuan revealed a warm smile as he looked at the three-eyed golden lion on top of him. Although his words were harsh, his tone was full of love. Brother. The three-eyed golden lion called out softly. She rubbed her head against Lu Yuan's face, and her golden fur rustled against his skin. Lu Yuan couldn't help but reach out and stroke the three-eyed golden lion's soft, golden fur. He felt so comfortable that he closed his eyes. Jiu Yuana was not far from Lu Yuan. She was watching the intimate scene between the siblings. Her lips curled into a gentle smile. She had been with Lu Yuan for the past 5 days. It had been an ordinary life, but she was intoxicated. This warm feeling was not bad. If she could, she really wanted to spend the rest of her life with Lu Yuan. All right, get off of me. Look at me, I'm covered in dust. You little girl. Lu Yuan patted the three-eyed golden lion's head. He had been sitting there, but Wang Chioa had pushed him to the ground. His back was covered in dust. Moreover, he was wearing white clothes, so the dust on his clothes was very conspicuous. Oh. The three-eyed golden lion was a little reluctant as she rubbed her head against Lu Yuan's cheek again. She climbed off of Lu Yuan's body. Once the three-eyed golden lion came down, Lu Yuan stood up and used his soul force to sweep away the dust on his body. This was a move that he had learned from Jiu Yuana, and it was very effective. It was just that his control of soul force was a little high, but it wasn't too difficult for Lu Yuan right now. With the dust removed, Lu Yuan felt much better. Looking at the three-eyed golden lion in front of him, Lu Yuan bent down slightly and gently rubbed her head. As for the three-eyed golden lion, all 3 of its eyes were slightly closed as it enjoyed Lu Yuan's closeness. Xiao Wu, who was chatting with the Sky Azure Bull Python and Titan Giant Ape, had a trace of loneliness and a hint of envy in her eyes when she saw how close the siblings were. In the past, she had also been this close to Tang San. Unfortunately, they had become enemies now. Tang San hated her for being an accomplice to Tang Hao's death, and Xiao Wu also resented Tang San. Not only did his father try to steal her soul ring and soul bone, but he also caused the Titan giant ape to be severely injured and had to be sacrificed. The two of them could no longer be as close as before. Originally, she thought that she didn't care about it anymore. However, when she saw how close Lu Yuan and the three-eyed golden lion were today, she suddenly felt a little sad. As expected, this kind of closeness can only exist between soul beasts. Humans really aren't trustworthy. They're all greedy. Xiao Wu couldn't help but think to herself as she looked at Lu Yuan and Hu Shaoheng. Lu Yuan naturally didn't know what Xiao Wu was thinking. As he rubbed the three-eyed golden lion's head, his thoughts slowly drifted away. It's already been 5 days. The martial soul palace must be in chaos. I wonder where Yang Shaozhe is now. I hope he can hurry over. Lu Yuan thought to himself. Pontiff's palace. Bibidon sat high on the pontiff's throne. As she looked down at the weary Chihiro Snow, a look of sorrow flashed across her eyes. According to the news that Cher had brought back, something seemed to have happened to Ibuchi. He was the disciple that she valued the most. After all, they had interacted for so many years, and he already held a very high position in her heart. Now that something had happened to him, Bibidon's heart was throbbing with pain. It was as if she had lost something important. However, looking at Chihiro Snow's appearance, she had never entered the Pope's palace before. Today, she actually took the initiative to enter the Pope's palace. Furthermore, she seemed to have lost her spirit. It seemed like something had happened to Ibuchi, and it was a huge blow to her. However, she probably wouldn't be the one who found it the hardest to accept that something had happened to Ibuchi. Chihiro Snow, what did you say? Something has happened to Junior? Helena's beautiful eyes were red. With an incredulous look on her face, she stared at Chihiro Snow. Beside Helena, Zhu Zhuqing's eyes were also red. Her pretty face was pale. She also stared at Chihiro Snow, hoping to get an answer from her. Facing the two women's questioning gazes, a trace of guilt flashed across Chen Renshue's haggard and beautiful face. Her eyes were constantly dripping with tears as she sobbed and recounted the entire sequence of events. Suddenly, Helena and Zhu Zhuqing took a few steps back at the same time. They held their hearts, and tears kept falling from the corners of their eyes. It's all my fault. It's all my fault for being stubborn. Ibuchi clearly sensed the danger. If I had listened to him and retreated in time, nothing would have happened. He wouldn't have been seriously injured in order to save me. Chihiro Snow's face was filled with deep regret, and tears fell like rain. What's the use of saying this now? Hearing the reason for Lu Yuan's accident, Helena immediately exploded. She went forward and grabbed Chihiro Snow's collar. Her jade-like face was filled with hatred. Why did you have to act on your own? Why didn't you get into trouble? If it wasn't for you, Junior Brother wouldn't have gotten into trouble at all. Junior Brother spoiled you too much. That's why you have such a willful and reckless character. If you had listened to him, how could this have happened? Helena's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She was extremely angry. She pinched Chihiro Snow's collar until the veins on the back of her hand popped out. She pushed Chen Renshue with all her might. Chen Renshue, who had yet to recover from her injuries, was pushed to the ground. Chihiro Snow fell to the ground. Her originally neat hair was messed up. Her golden hair was stuck together with her tears. Her beautiful face was haggard. Chihiro Snow, who was originally as arrogant as an angel, looked particularly helpless at this moment. Looking at Chihiro Snow like this, Bibidon's red lips slightly opened. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Sure enough, after hearing the news of Lu Yuan's accident, Helena, who was originally amiable and peaceful, exploded on the spot. In her anger, she directly pushed Chihiro Snow to the ground. To be honest, Bibidon had never seen Helena like this. Sure enough, as long as it involved Lu Yuan, Helena would completely change into a different fish. This girl really loved Ibuchi too much. Chapter 449. However, from what Cher said, since the silver-haired lady could tear space apart to save Ibuchi, she might be able to save Ibuchi. Furthermore, with Ibuchi's luck, he should be able to survive this crisis. Bibi Dong comforted himself in his heart. After all, Lu Yuan was very important to her, not only to Hu Lena and Zhu Zhuqing, but also to herself. It could be said that Lu Yuan's position in her heart was even higher than Chihiro Snow and Hu Lena. Apart from a certain useless coward, Lu Yuan was the most important person in Bibidon's heart right now. Therefore, how could she not be anxious when she heard that Lu Yuan was in such a life-threatening situation? However, she had been through a lot, and she was also the Pope. She was very strong-willed. Others could panic, but she couldn't. Furthermore, she could see the sorrowful looks on the girls' faces. If she panicked, the situation would be completely out of control. However, even if she didn't show it, it didn't mean that she wasn't angry. Evil soul masters, sooner or later, I'll kill all of you. Originally, she didn't feel anything towards evil soul masters. Hunting them down was just an old tradition of the martial soul palace. However, a strong killing intent surged from her heart this time. These evil soul masters had severely injured her precious disciple. If she didn't take revenge for this, she wouldn't be Bibidon. With Bibidon's personality, it was very difficult for her to approve of someone. However, once she approved of someone, she would treat that person wholeheartedly. It was obvious that Lu Yuan had already received Bibidon's approval. Those who dared to touch her people had to be prepared to suffer her revenge. Bibidon felt a headache as she looked at the 3 heartbroken girls below. However, she still had to persuade them. Alright, Nana, Ibuchi might not be in trouble. Didn't she say that Ibuchi was saved by a silver-haired lady in the end? Bibidon continued, since that silver-haired lady can kill a transcendent Douluo in one move, she must be at least an ultimate Douluo. Since she took Ibuchi away, she must be able to save Ibuchi. You don't have to be too worried. Who knows, maybe Ibuchi will return soon? But teacher, Chihiro Snow said that Ibuchi's bones were all broken, and his body was deformed. He's on his last breath. How can such serious injuries be treated so easily? Huliena's eyes were filled with tears, her voice choked with sobs, and even if she was lucky enough to save Junior Brother, with such heavy injuries and broken meridians, Junior Brother's cultivation would definitely be crippled. Junior Brother is such a proud person. How could he accept such a blow? Junior Brother was originally a 1 in a million prodigy. Now that he's become a piece of trash who can't cultivate, he'll definitely suffer a fate worse than death. This. After hearing Hulena's words, Bibidon was stunned. Yes, Lu Yuan's bones were all broken, and his meridians were all broken. Even if he was saved, with his talent, he would probably. After hearing Bibidon and Hulena's conversation, Zhu Zhuqing felt a chill in her heart. Lu Yuan was such a proud person. She was very clear that if he really became a piece of trash who couldn't cultivate, he would probably suffer a fate worse than death. The death of a prodigy was even more painful than being a piece of trash all the time. It's all your fault. Hulena stared at Chihiro Snow. If anything happens to Junior Brother, I won't let you off. And those evil soul masters. I'll kill them all while I'm still alive. Hulena's tone was laced with intense hatred. To her, Lu Yuan was her sky, and he was her life. Anyone who dared to hurt Lu Yuan would die a horrible death. Count me in. Zhu Zhuqing's cold voice rang out. Her usually cold face was filled with bone-chilling coldness, and her pitch-black eyes were filled with a murderous aura. Lu Yuan was also her one and only. She had already decided that if anything happened to Lu Yuan, she would fight evil soul masters to the death for the rest of her life. After destroying the evil soul masters, she would simply follow him. This was her vow. She would follow Lu Yuan for the rest of her life. Zhu Zhuqing was also someone who wouldn't regret her decision for the rest of her life. In the face of Hulena's accusations, Chihiro Snow collapsed to the ground helplessly. Her eyes were empty and lifeless. If Hulena could think of it, she could naturally think of it too. This was why she was so weak and helpless. Her heart was filled with deep regret. She regretted not listening to Lu Yuan. If she could do it all over again, no matter what Lu Yuan said, she would definitely do it. It had been 5 days. Chihiro Snow had struggled in this extreme pain and regret for 5 days. If not for the fact that she still had some hope that Lu Yuan was still alive, she wouldn't have been able to bear the condemnation in her heart. She would have chosen to follow Lu Yuan. In terms of strength, in terms of stubbornness, and in terms of love, Qian Renxue was not inferior to anyone. She was also deeply in love with Lu Yuan. Bibidon heaved a deep sigh as she looked at the three girls below. If there was no news of Lu Yuan, these three girls wouldn't be free. She couldn't help but praise Lu Yuan in her heart. This precious disciple of hers was indeed a blessed person. There were three such good girls who missed him, and were even willing to give up their lives for him. Even if he died, he wouldn't have lived in vain with these three girls grieving for him. He wasn't like her. No one doted on her, and no one loved her. If she died, who would grieve for her? Chihiro Snow? This girl probably hates me to death, right? Who Lena? Yes, this girl has deep feelings for me. If something happens to me, this girl will definitely be sad. The only one left is my precious disciple, who's already in trouble. Other than that, there's no one else. Thinking about it, I've really been a failure in this life. It's been quite painful. Bibidon had a self-deprecating look on her face as she thought of this. Shaking her head, Bibidon looked at the three girls below. She wanted to say something to persuade them, but she didn't know what to say. At this moment, a voice sounded from outside the hall. Reporting to Your Holiness, there's someone called Yang Shaozhe outside. He wishes to see you. The paladin knelt on the ground and reported respectfully. I won't see him. Bibidon opened her red lips and rejected him directly. Didn't he know what time it was now? This place was still in a mess because of Abuchi's matter. How could she have the time to see someone she hadn't even heard of before? But Your Holiness, that person claims to be young Master Yuan, and he has the angel's badge in his hand. Once this was said, the entire Pope's palace fell silent. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.